It is 10 a.m. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. According to a report by Tom Pelissero, the Titans have tendered nose tackle Keandre Coburn. In other NFL news, a trade within the AFC South came down on Thursday. The Jaguars are trading wide receiver Christian Kirk to the Houston Texans in exchange for a 2026 7th-round pick. The Cincinnati Bengals are giving star edge rusher Trey Hendrickson permission to seek a trade. The 30-year-old led the NFL in sacks last year with 17 and a half. And the Buffalo Bills have agreed to terms with linebacker Terrell Bernard on a 4-year, $50 million deal with over $25 million guaranteed. The Nashville Predators beat the Seattle Kraken 5-3 on Thursday. Philip Forsberg with a pair of goals. The Preds will look to make it a 3-game win streak tomorrow as they host the Blackhawks at 7 p.m. College basketball, the SEC women's tournament continues in the quarterfinals today in Greenville. Vanderbilt facing number 1 South Carolina. Tip-off is at 11 a.m. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Bad day to be a Jags player that was brought in by Trent Baalke. Holy hell. As the NFL teams begin the roster culling, I don't know if anywhere was laid as bare as Jacksonville was yesterday. Titans are obviously a team that we are keeping an eye on, though not a ton of movement expected there. They got cap space to work with. They can create more, and we're going to get into one way that they could create a significant amount or significantly more than they currently have here in just a second. Happy Friday. Congratulations to all. You made it. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Lucas, Burt, and me with you until 1 o'clock. Coach Dave McGinnis at 11:20, as is the custom. Boys, the first week back together. How we feeling?
Terrible. Has gone about as poorly as I thought it would. Maybe even a little worse. Also, Cam Ward is in town.
Yes.
Visiting with the Titans. Wonder if he is getting a chance to swing by Hattie B's.
That should be a part of the recruiting pitch, of course. The best hot chicken in the world right here at your disposal. Now, perhaps that would not help with the strength and conditioning program or the dietary restrictions that the Titans may or may not have, or dietary plan, maybe not the restrictions.
No, Hattie B's has options.
Hattie B's has options
that can fit those dietary restrictions.
Well, certainly there's precious little indication of that based on your sampling of Hattie B's. But that's
not the route I go, certainly. But grilled chicken, the black-eyed pea salad is a fantastic side. There's something for everyone.
Q in the F&M Bank chat, where you can also interact with the radio show, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch is how you get involved. He says, or I assume it's a he, but maybe not. If Amy Adams Strunk is at the Cam Ward meeting, then I think it is great news for him coming here. I need someone on Auntie Amy watch. Yeah, I would be shocked if she was involved in the top 30 visit. Now, maybe that one of these 30 visits corresponds with when she happens to be in town to review Nissan Stadium construction or go through potential staff changes that have been made or will be made post-draft. I suppose there could be a correlation there, but I don't think she's flying in for 30 visits.
But if the discussion in there is, hey, we think this is going to be our guy, you don't think she'd be there?
At a 30 visit?
For the number 1 overall pick?
Maybe. But I think it's way less likely than more likely.
I'm not saying she needs to fly in for every 30 visit that they have, but for the number 1 pick, that could be their franchise quarterback.
Just based on percentage of time that she spends here, no, I would be surprised. I would be truly surprised if she was in attendance or specially flew in for that, just because it's the number 1 overall pick at quarterback. Though, these things are always within the realm of possibility. I suppose I could poke around and find out if that's something that's going on. But with all the teams that are trimming their rosters and players that have been granted permission to seek trades, which is really a team being like, hey, see if you can get something for you before we cut you and clear up some salary cap space. Harold Landry's future is hanging in the balance out here. Of course, a week ago at the Combine, it was reported that Harold Landry was being granted permission to seek a trade, which does not mean that Harold Landry wants a trade. In fact, quite the opposite. Harold Landry does not want to be traded. He would like to remain here. He has a very comfortable life here with his young family that he has, and he's still under 30, so that young family still continues to be young. And I think as the longest tenured Titan at this point in his career, it does mean something to these guys to finish, if they can, where they started, though it almost never happens. And the Titans are, in essence, saying, not publicly, but privately, yeah, we can do life without Harold Landry. He's not such a good player, especially at that price point, that he has to be kept here, though a pay cut should always be a portion of that conversation. We'll see how far along it gets. But the fact that he's not been released, and a lot of these players who were granted permission to seek a trade and were not able to find a trade partner have since been released, and Harold's still on the roster, makes it an interesting question as free agency gets ready to begin in 3 days. Well, legal tampering begins in 3 days from now. The new league year technically begins on March the 12th, though we will know many details on free agent signings basically as soon as legal tampering opens.
If Harold does not hear what he would like to hear in discussions with other teams, as the Titans have given him permission to do so, what do you think would be more likely? Returning to Tennessee on a pay cut or an outright release?
It's a good question.
And what do you think he would prefer as someone who
I think he'd prefer
has a home in Nashville, is here, is established here?
No disputing that. And, I'm not speaking for Harold or anything like that. I haven't talked to him, but, he wants to stay. It's just far easier that way, right? Kids are, I don't remember the exact ages of his children, but they probably have some level of school that they're attached to at this point in time. We are still in the middle of school cycles, so potentially if these things get metered out over summer vacation, changes could be made. But that's like Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill hung around Nashville longer than people expected him to because his kids are in school here, and that means something. And they're older, right? They're further along, so maybe if your kids aren't in a stage of life where that would have a huge amount of impact on them, you might consider or might be more open to those things. But the family stuff, I think, carries a great deal of weight with him, and that the preference would be, yeah, let's not rock the boat if we can help it. I don't know, man. If you're telling the guy we can see life without you, it almost makes me think that a release is more likely than him coming back on a pay cut. But you have a need for a true edge rusher. You just don't have one in Harold Landry, or a legit edge rusher. You don't have one in Harold Landry or Arden Key. So people are going to be replaced here. People are going to be supplemented here. I wonder if they don't consider making Harold more of a supplementary type player. Now, obviously, for that price point, that's not acceptable, and so a pay cut would be preferred. But once you kind of cross that threshold of, yeah, man, we're good. See what you can get out there. Makes me think that a release is a legit possibility. But it hadn't happened yet, so it's worth keeping an eye on.
Speaking of a reunion that may not happen, Robert just sent this into the group chat. Andrew Filipponi of 93.7 The Fan in Pittsburgh is, I don't want to say a report because he leads the tweet with hot rumor. So
I'm going to start doing that on Twitter. People will be pissed.
A Justin Fields Steelers reunion is being held up because Fields is worried the Steelers won't commit to him as the starting quarterback. After getting benched last year, he's leery the team could sign competition or draft a quarterback early, even though the Steelers have, the 21st pick? Money not the issue, he says.
So Fields is worried the Steelers won't commit to him as the starting quarterback. I mean, that's a completely reasonable fear. What has Justin Fields done to earn, sight unseen?
Yeah.
All right, you're our starting quarterback, bud.
I think I agree with you there.
Who is going to tell Justin Fields that he is sight unseen the starting quarterback anywhere in the NFL?
The Titans?
There are a lot.
Based on what he's done?
Based on whoever the hell else the other options are.
That's
What do you
I'm saying.
mean?
Like, there are so many.
You would rather them trade for Kirk Cousins than sign him for $25 a year to start?
No, what I would prefer to do is different than what I would think an NFL organization would be. They're not going to tell him. I don't think there's a team out there that's going to tell Justin Fields, we're signing you to be our definitive starting quarterback.
I think you're so wrong about that. At every turn, we have just talked about how the demand greatly outweighs the supply this year at the quarterback position.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean, again, Kirk Cousins, how many guarantees was literal guarantees was Kirk Cousins given about being the starting quarterback in Atlanta? And then they benched his ass.
Monetarily, he was given guarantees for the first and second year. I think that's all Justin Fields is looking for. In the tweet it says money is no issue.
Money not the issue. Now,
sure,
again,
money is not the issue.
We should preface this by saying hot rumor.
But also, I have more issue with you saying who would be cool with Justin Fields coming in being their starting quarterback. I think the Jets would be cool with that. I think the Raiders would be cool with that. I think the Titans would be cool with that.
My point is, who is going to tell him definitively, hey, bud, don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about your starting quarterback job. I think he's going to be told, we are going to bring you in to compete for the starting quarterback job anywhere that he might sign.
You don't think that they would just lie to his face like Kirk Cousins was lied to his face last year if they're going to draft someone? They don't know.
It's easier to lie to Kirk Cousins' face because you're just stuffing his mouth full of money.
Sure, but with Justin Fields, you could say, okay, come in and play with us. But if you tell him, yeah, we're going to draft a quarterback early, I'm not going to sign with you. You just have to lie to him. That's the game. I think plenty of teams would be willing to lie to him at the beginning of free agency than be cast into doubt and not know who the hell's going to play quarterback for him this season.
I believe that Mike Tomlin certainly wouldn't give Justin Fields that guarantee. He doesn't really seem like the type of head coach to do that.
Because he's a good person. Just be straight up with the kid.
But there are so many quarterback desperate teams that are not going to be able to draft one that are going to be very low on options that I think would bring him in to be the starter. And even if they're not guaranteeing it, if you bring in Justin Fields and sign Jacoby Brissett, Justin Fields, probably your starter.
Fair. But I think that, again, based on the hot rumor, not a report, as this person is prefacing it, by saying he's worried because the Steelers won't commit to him as the starting quarterback. I don't know which NFL team would back themselves into a corner for the sake of Justin Fields to say, don't worry about a thing. You're our guy. You're my boy, Blue. For a guy that got benched last year for mid-Russell Wilson, I don't think that it's not like this is Sam Darnold, right? This is not yet a reclaimed quarterback that has proven that he deserves a legitimate opportunity to be one of these $30 to $40 million guys. This is a dude who's going to get another prove-it deal.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing with you. But we've seen plenty of teams bring in quarterbacks of that caliber or less and hand them starting jobs. How rare, we talk about this all the time, just how rare actual competitions are for the starting quarterback job on an NFL team. It hardly happens.
That conversation got really thick. We got really kind of heated right there. But speaking of thick,
oh my God,
Lucas has got to get some new jeans. If anyone out there is listening that develop, what are I know cobblers are people that make shoes. What's it called? People jeaners?
A panter?
Are there any panters out there? Any jeaners?
I don't think that's what that is.
Is there any
panting is what you do when you take too many stairs.
What do you call someone who makes pants? Oh, a tailor.
Okay, if there are any tailors out there, Lucas, can you go ahead and stand? I don't know if we can do this on Zone TV. Lucas,
not safe for work. Yeah,
I will not let you subject me.
Lucas has a donk. You have got to get some new jeans.
These jeans are not that tight.
Oh my God, it's like cellophane.
If you did not see Lucas from the waist up and were walking behind him, you would think that's a woman's tush.
I've done that at holiday parties when he's dressed up and go, whoa, and then Lucas turns around. And I'm like, what? No, come on. I would never do that at a holiday party. But all I'm saying, Lucas needs some new pants.
You were at a different holiday party than I was last year.
They are too tight.
This is turning into an HR issue. It's a blessing and a curse. I will acknowledge that I do live with that. but these pants are not that tight. I have a
Blaine?
hard time finding jeans that fit me,
Well,
man.
no, they're tight in unpleasant places for you, which is why I'm telling you, somebody like you that has, I won't call it a problem because it's not like, I don't know, it's not like a
Wish
physical.
I had that problem.
I mean, I would rather fill out my jeans than not, I
My
guess.
ass is fat in the worst way.
Well, yeah, but that's lumpy. That's not
Yeah,
shapely.
right. Craters like the moon. I don't have like a Lucas ass.
It's my best feature.
I don't dispute that at all.
You should have heard Blaine complaining yesterday about the indents that he has to sit in. He's like, "Well, this is like the Grand Canyon in this chair after Lucas is here for 3 hours."
I'm
Who's our
telling you.
HR point of
I
contact
have
in the
no
building?
idea.
Do not email them. Do
if
not
we-
pick your
if
email.
we-
I'm just going
would-
to email HR@cumulus. Oh, that is an actual email. Okay, I'm going to type this out.
Yeah, it goes to somewhere in Dallas. You're going to be waiting weeks for a resolution before somebody can call us in an office for ogling your tush. You need somebody who's going to make jeans that fit you. You cannot shop for off-the-rack jeans. I'm telling you this. You're going to go through this problem for the rest of your life until you finally speaking of crossing the threshold, you need jeans that fit.
Any tailors out there that want to sponsor me, I am open for business.
You Goodwill jeans are just fine. Don't hate on Goodwill jeans. $8 a pair. Thank you.
There is nothing that I would rather do. You're probably getting some kind of ringworm from your jeans. I don't want somebody else's jeans.
These are kind of itchy, but $8.
Can't pass up those savings.
615-737-1045. Can the Titans pass up on the Harold Landry savings? Find out next. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is out here saving relationships because if you have performance issues as your body changes, as you start to age, maybe you've gone to pills, but the pills stop working. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is here to help you work through any misconceptions you might have about seeking ED treatment. Do not go through extremes like irreversible surgery, for example, to treat ED before you have talked to the experts at the Tennessee Men's Clinic because they specialize in men's sexual health issues. It's all they do. It makes them the experts in the field, and they have access to multiple protocols and options to treat ED based on your specific needs and what's going on in your body. So don't trust your health to an online pharmacy and don't feel like you're out of options. The Tennessee Men's Clinic wants to make sure that you understand all options that are available for you when it comes to ED treatment. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED, treatments that increase size and stamina, and everything else in between. Perhaps they can even do a reduction for Lucas on the back end. Bottom line, no one has more expertise and experience in successfully treating men's sexual health issues than the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and they are passionate about what they do. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. So people have called in. People want to talk about Lucas's butt. Lucas doesn't want to talk about Lucas's butt. We'll get to NFL headlines.
Oh, I'm used to it.
Here in just a second. You have to be. I mean, the thing is unavoidable.
We just talk about it behind your back most of the time.
That's okay. It's my best feature. That is a thing that I'm perfectly fine with.
Let's go to Thomas in Leaper's Fork, who wants to chime in on the pants. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, you can tell Lucas my last name is Taylor, so technically I'm a Taylor.
Okay.
And anybody with a tush that's big, any guy with a tush that's that big, shouldn't be wearing pants that are tight enough to show it.
Yeah.
Thomas, it doesn't matter what pants I wear.
No, it does. I'm telling you, if you go somewhere that will help make a pair of pants that fit your body, it will not be as glaringly obvious that thing is about to pop out of those jeans.
You think this hasn't been a lifelong struggle for me? I'm
Thank you for the call,
29
Thomas.
years old.
I am providing you solutions. Whether or not you choose to pursue them and instead go with Bert's $8 Goodwill jeans, I can't help you there. But I have given you the tools, all right? Whether you choose to take advantage of them or not, entirely different.
I'm not going to go buy your $500 gold-plated jeans or whatever you were suggesting before the show.
The jeans that I just got a text about that are ready were not $500. I don't know how much they were off the top of my head, but I will find out for you because they were not $500. $228. $228 for a pair of jeans. I don't think that's unreasonable. Perfect timing.
It's time for NFL headlines with the man with the golden tush, Lucas Panzica.
Anthony Webster's solution is just to quit looking at Lucas's butt. Problem solved. You don't understand.
I can't help it. I cannot help it.
It's just one of those things like in a room, like a painting that looks kind of funny and it draws the eye. Like you cannot escape this thing.
I walk in a room and it's like a solar eclipse is happening.
Don't stare directly at it.
Cleveland Browns owner Jimmy Haslam recently denied a request to meet with Myles Garrett amid the star pass rusher's trade request. NFL Network was first on this. Haslam declined the request, and he directed Garrett to speak instead with general manager Andrew Berry. A Browns spokesperson declined to comment to ESPN. So Myles Garrett publicly requested his trade request Super Bowl week, I believe.
Leading into, because then he did a
and
tour
then he did
saying,
his media tour.
Oh, I'd love to play for X, or I wouldn't like to play for Y.
Basically campaigning
Yes.
In so many words, saying, please, Browns, please trade me. And the Browns, at every turn, have said publicly, including most recently at the Combine, our plan is for Myles Garrett to be in our future. Both sides are dug in, and I am fascinated at just how long this chicken fight continues to go.
Well, I mean, this is the thing that I brought up at the time. Like, players in the NFL try this because it exists in the NBA. And it just doesn't work in the NFL this way. Like, you unless the team is really done with you, you don't get to go, or you don't get to kind of flex your star power in a league that, yeah, Myles Garrett is the best pass rusher out there, right? Indisputably. When you talk about generational player, Myles Garrett is one. He's a former number 1 overall pick. He's the most effective player at what it is that he does. Sure, he's getting closer to 30 than he is to 20, but he's still a hugely effective player, and you could argue that pass rushers, given the way that the game has evolved, they age pretty well at this point in time. So there's reason to believe that Myles Garrett can do this for, I would argue, 5 to 6 more years at a legit high level. I think it's pretty easy. It's always easy to pile on Jimmy Haslam because he's a bad NFL owner. Can we agree on that? Mm-hmm. He is a bad NFL owner. There are plenty of bad NFL owners. I am though, I'm okay with him directing Myles Garrett back to Andrew Berry. That's the least meddlesome thing that Jimmy Haslam could do. What Jimmy Haslam could do is make the situation worse. He could undermine his coach and his general manager and be like, yeah, Myles, you got it. We'll get you out of here. Don't worry about it. Andrew Berry's going to throw his hands up in the air and be like, hey, shut up. But he can't because it's his boss. And that boss basically forced them to continue to play Deshaun Watson until the injury obviously took Deshaun Watson out of the picture. So I hate it for Myles Garrett. I wish that player empowerment was more prevalent in the NFL. Of course, you get extremes like Aaron Rodgers, who for a period of time was the most powerful player in the NFL. But even then, that has a shelf life because now he's 40 plus, 2 years removed from an Achilles, and he's a Jets cast-off. They don't even want him.
I get why the Browns are as dug in as they are. I'm with you. I mean, wouldn't a Myles Garrett trade, even if it's for a huge haul, which it would have to be, wouldn't a Myles Garrett trade just feel like the beginning of the end for Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski? And this, that would just feel like the unraveling. I don't know if it hasn't already started. You are getting roasted on the F&M Bank chat for your thought that $228 for a pair of jeans is perfectly reasonable.
I think it's perfectly reasonable.
I could be a billionaire, and I think I would refuse to pay $200 for a pair of jeans.
Well, that's stupid.
If I'm a billionaire, I'm just going naked. You got enough money to pay off any
You
fines.
do that anyway.
Public indecency.
I was about to say, you are not a billionaire, famously, and you rarely have clothes on.
This is another...
Why we can't put him on camera?
This is another what could a banana cost $10 moment from you, I think.
I just don't think it's that. Anyway, we don't have to get into it. Larry wants to talk about Lucas's butt.
Yo, you can hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, man, Lucas, you're not alone, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I too suffer from, having a large behind, man, and it's one of my better features, But I just want to say, man, you're not alone, and I too have been thinking about, getting pants tailored, but I don't know, where to even begin. Like, do I just take the pants that I currently own to the tailor and they measure me or what? Like, I just didn't know how to go about getting tailored. So I just want to know what you guys thoughts about that.
Listen, you can find a tailor anywhere in the city. I get suits, I have suits that don't cost an outrageous amount of money that I'm not done with, but that, I've gone down in size over the course of the last couple of years, and I get them taken in. It's not, I don't know, you could probably get a pair of pants tailor for $50.
There are dozens of us.
I would say that there is a sponsorship opportunity here. If you are a tailor out there who focuses mostly on men with large gluteus maximus.
A whole new meaning to BTS. Big tush syndrome.
Big tush syndrome.
I just love that
Moving it along here.
No, we're going to sit, literally, no pun intended, sit here for a minute. I love that you are getting calls from people because this is probably a more common problem than you realize.
Oh, who said it's a problem? It is a problem in the sense
when
that
it comes to
I have
your
a hard
clothing.
time finding pants. Yes, but overall, it's a
and that
plus.
you are becoming a distraction at work because you can't hide that thing.
I think most people would look at it as an issue, but Lucas, those metal bleachers at school events that people are like, I can't sit on these things for too long. Lucas is like, love it, doesn't bother me at all.
That's right. I will never have to bring one of those fold out, portable chairs that people bring to their kids' high school games.
It's for your back.
Built-in seat saver.
That's right.
What's the next
A blessing and a curse. The Jacksonville Jaguars have sent wide receiver Christian Kirk to the Houston Texans. So an intra-AFC South trade in exchange for a 2026 seventh-round pick. Kirk played about half the season last year before going down with an injury. And the Jags, that wasn't their only transaction. They released two-time Pro Bowl tight end Evan Ingram, the draft pick out of Ole Miss. So a couple of moves made by the Jags as they're going to have a largely overhauled array of weaponry outside of or around Trevor Lawrence, probably built around Brian Thomas Jr., the receiver heading into his second year. But AFC South to AFC South, Christian Kirk remains in the division.
James Gladstone took a jackhammer to Trent Baalke's roster. He wants nothing to do with anything. All these things that helped, Trent Baalke's personality also helped him get fired, and the inability for him to work with attractive coaching candidates helped get him fired. But also the roster is underperformed. He's had how many first-round draft picks or first overall draft picks? We've talked about this before. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. How many first overall picks did Trent Baalke get to make as the GM of the Jaguars?
Multiple.
Way more than
Lawrence
anybody
and
deserved.
Walker just off the top of our head.
Yeah.
But still, yeah. The Jags... do the Jags lead the league in number one pick selections?
It's got to be close.
They've been around since the 90s. Like, they haven't been around. They're about as old as we are.
It's probably the Browns.
It probably is the Browns.
I would say the Browns have even after the Browns left and then became the Ravens and then they started the Browns again, like the Browns franchise has to lead the league in number one overall picks. They have been abhorrent.
Yeah. I'm getting tweets pointing me to certain tailors in different neighborhoods of Nashville, including one in Green Hills that apparently fits a lot of the Preds players and Preds broadcast crew.
If you won't spend more than what is the most you are willing to spend on a pair of jeans?
Oh, $228 on a pair of jeans. It's a matter of principle. It's just outrageous. I would spend like
not outrageous.
$150. I'm capping it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
$150 for a pair of jeans. You could take the pants that you're wearing to a tailor and get them done for like probably between $40 and $50 and be done with it and not have to buy the new pair of jeans.
The Cincinnati Bengals are allowing star pass rusher Trey Hendrickson to seek a trade. I don't know if we talked about this much because this happened during Super Bowl week and we talked about it when you were gone, but I loved his approach to this because
Hendrickson's?
Yes. He obviously has led the NFL in sacks, 17 and a half sacks each of the last 2 years. He's 30 years old. The Bengals have kind of kicked the can with him in the last couple of years, gave him a 1-year deal. They have not given him the long-term extension that he wants. So he publicly said, either sign me, really sign me, or trade me. And his reasoning on the Pat McAfee show and all of the media appearances he did in New Orleans was, hey, listen, I just want the Bengals to win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. That's what I want. You know, don't look at me. I just want the team, whether it's because I'm here helping them do it or because they are getting draft picks for me that help them do it. I just want the Bengals to win the Super Bowl. It was a great job by Trey Hendrickson pointing the finger over to Cincinnati. They're the ones that don't want to win the Super Bowl here. I don't know what to tell you. But the Bengals have given him permission to seek a trade.
More players should do that.
Yeah.
Aren't they asking for like a second-round pick for him? I think I saw that as recently as this morning.
He is a star player.
He is a star player.
On a defense that was atrocious last year.
Because I saw a lot of Titans fans making the obvious connection between Brian Callahan and Trey Hendrickson. And
they are seeking a late second-round pick or early third, according to Jonathan Jones of CBS.
You don't have a late second and you don't have an early third because you have no third and an early second. Apparently, some of this is being reported that Max Crosby got that mega deal yesterday, and that helped trigger the Bengals to say, okay, we're not going to be in that level of business because he's the highest paid non-quarterback in history now, Max Crosby, right? So Trey Hendrickson, who has led the league in sacks, and he's a different kind of player than Max Crosby. I think Max Crosby is the better overall player, but Trey Hendrickson is obviously a great player in his own right. I get the Bengals looking around and being like, all right, bud, especially them for their history and they're kicking the can down the road, as you've said, to pay top dollar for a player like that. I think they'd prefer to try and find another solution, especially in this particular draft class. So Titans and Trey Hendrickson would be fun, but not realistic.
Crosby's younger. He's 27. He'll be 28 this coming season. But he did just sign in terms of average annual value, the biggest deal for a non-quarterback in NFL history. Speaking of guys that are getting up there, Bobby Wagner, still around, and he is going to stay in Washington. They sign him back on a 1-year deal, and Bobby Wagner gets up to $9.5 million this year. Played some good football for the Commanders last year, and they're going to keep him. 34 years old. He will be 35 in week 1.
Yeah, it's crazy. Have you seen the list of linebackers that are free agents? This, again, is why I have such an issue with the Kenneth Murray deal that he got last year. How much, again, the contracts would be more for, say, even somebody like, what was the name of the linebacker they traded last year to the Seahawks that they got from the Rams? I'm blanking.
The Titans, Ernest Jones.
Ernest Jones is going to be an unrestricted free agent again this year. He'd probably make more than Kenneth Murray did last year, but he's a better player. Like, he's a significantly better player. The Titans, this might be the year that linebackers get paid. Like this, we talked about last year, the running back contracts and how, maybe not surprising based on what the draft class looked like, that the running backs ended up getting legit money. Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, on and on. This might be the year to pay linebackers because the linebacker class is pretty interesting. Bobby Wagner just got a deal. You've got guys like Robert Spillane, Titans legend out there, who's actually gone on to have a really good career after being a former UDFA. Levante David, Dre Greenlaw. I know Jerome Baker didn't do anything here and obviously he got to the point where he's a healthy scratch in a lot of situations. But this is another reason for me to take issue with the Kenneth Murray contract, because there are so many better players who are going to cost you ballpark the same as Kenneth Murray did last year that are available this year. And you still have a damn need at off-ball linebacker.
There have been some big deals there. The Bills, this morning, news broke that they signed Terrell Bernard on a 4-year, $50 million deal, $25.2 million guaranteed. I think it was yesterday or the day before that we learned the Eagles are signing all-pro linebacker Zach Bond to a 3-year, $51 million deal. He had a career year last year with Philly, $34 million in guaranteed money. So, yeah, the linebacker money is flying so far this offseason. Cowboys have reworked Dak Prescott's contract.
Yeah.
Creating over $36 million in cap space. They have now created over $56 million in cap space after restructuring both Dak and CeeDee Lamb in their approach this year of being, what was it from Stephen Jones? Selectively aggressive, the mantra from Dallas.
I still don't know what the hell that means. Cowboys fans are just... Kirby talked about it at the Combine. It is probably not an ideal situation to be a Cowboys fan in this current iteration. 90s were fun. It's been a long time, 30 years removed, really, from your last Super Bowl relevance. And the Cowboys are always relevant. We understand this. They're going to have a lot of legwork to do to get their fan base excited about anything. And again, it's not about fan base excitement. Maybe Brian Schottenheimer shocks the world, right? Comes out and has the Cowboys competing at a reasonably high level, because, again, it's not like they don't have talent. But, this is the approach that Jerry probably should have taken last year, right? Being more selective in his free agent pursuits, or at least being more selective in the way that he talked about it instead of saying all in and then drafting a bunch of offensive linemen.
The Browns are reworking Deshaun Watson's contract. Yeah. That clears up nearly $36 million in cap space, and it gets them cap compliant. They were $22 million over the cap before that happened. And then there's this from Diana Rossini. 2 hours ago, she tweeted, "The Las Vegas Raiders are exploring veteran quarterback options on the free agent and trade market per sources. That includes the possibility of trading for a current starting quarterback." I was listening to Ramon, Kayla, and Will on the way in when she tweeted this, and they immediately discussed Geno Smith as the current starting quarterback that immediately comes to mind, with the obvious tie to Pete Carroll.
Oh, Russ?
Geno Smith.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I misheard you.
Russ is a free agent. They wouldn't have to trade for Russ.
What's Geno cost? Because I think he's got a pretty healthy contract.
1 year left on his deal.
Or a pretty healthy cap hit next year. Geno's also 35.
Yeah, he's 35. He's 34. He'll turn 35 in October. His cap hit is $38.5 million in 2025, and it is the final year of his deal with Seattle.
That makes way more sense than Russ in Vegas.
Yeah, I agree. Younger, not that much younger. But
yeah, Seattle's an interesting team here because, again, to your point about the quarterback musical chairs and not wanting to have to dip your toe into it this year if you can help it, like Geno Smith is obviously a good starting quarterback, but they got a lot of things that they got to work out.
Mm-hmm. They fired their offensive coordinator up there, Ryan Grubb,
because he was part of the problem.
Reunited with Kalen DeBoer at Alabama right after.
Which is where he was supposed to end up in the first place, right?
He went with DeBoer to Alabama, and basically after landing in Tuscaloosa, got the call from Seattle, and then bolted, and then was fired after 1 year, and now he's back with DeBoer, which is a huge hire, by the way. I think that Alabama offense has a chance to take a big step this year, unrelated.
Somebody asks in the F&M Bank chat, Taylor says, do they want Levis?
Please.
You can manifest it, maybe. You have a stat of the day.
I do. Final day of the regular season in the SEC men's basketball side, of course. Women's tournament is going on now.
We will find out that South Carolina Vanderbilt game is on while we're on
in 20 minutes.
So we can keep you updated with that. We'll get the SEC stat of the day from Lucas coming up next.
No. Oh. 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 Oh.
Stop moaning. You're only making it worse.
What are you doing, man?
You're the one moaning. Got too ahead of yourself down there with the toys, it seems, in the sec dungeon. All right, give me the sec stat of the day from the sec dungeon.
That gave me the ick. You know how people get the ick? That is gross. Do we still have Caleb Farley back there?
Caleb Farley, I don't know, it's been so long. Is Caleb
Can
Farley?
I rebuke that in the name of Jesus?
Does he have thoughts? Don't bring, people's higher power into this.
No, I feel like we need to ask for forgiveness on this one. My goodness. Now we just got to talk about basketball?
That's right.
We just talk about basketball?
And preferably if you could do it without moaning, because you're only going to make it worse.
The SEC Women's Basketball Tournament continues in Greenville, South Carolina. Oh, my God. Vanderbilt against top-seeded South Carolina, the number one team in the country. Vanderbilt ran away from Tennessee yesterday in South Carolina, and the quarterfinal round starts today, tipping off in 13 minutes. Huge opportunity for Shea Ralph's team to continue what has been an awesome season, and that would be probably one of the upsets of the year in all of basketball, men's or women's. The final day of the regular season on the men's side is tomorrow, which means seeding will be finalized for the SEC tournament at Bridgestone Arena. We know Auburn has clinched the outright regular season title, so they will be the number one seed in the SEC and, of course, the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament, regardless of what happens to them down the stretch here. Florida has locked down the 2 seed in the SEC tournament with their win over Alabama the other night. They are in great position to land a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. At this moment, Alabama stands 3rd in the SEC, but they can fall no lower than the 4 seed. So they're locked into a double bye at Bridgestone. And Tennessee is at this moment the 4 seed as it stands. So Tennessee, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M all technically are vying for that final double bye into the SEC tournament quarterfinals. Now, the Vols host last place South Carolina. So they play a team on Saturday, senior day, in Thompson Bowling Arena, Food City Center at Thompson Bowling Arena. South Carolina that has gone 2-15 in SEC play this year. Tennessee can win, and they're locked in. They're a 4 seed. They could lose and get some help and still be a 4 seed, but they will be heavy favorites and expected to win and lock that in. So if Alabama loses at Auburn and Tennessee wins, they'll be the 3 seed, thanks to their head-to-head win over Alabama, that buzzer beater from Jemai Mashak. So a lot at play here, but the Vols are in great position to close out a top 4 seed and start their SEC tournament campaign in the quarterfinal round. The game of the weekend in the SEC is that Alabama-Auburn game, a rematch. It's at Auburn.
I hope it's better than the first one.
The first one
was very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn, 1 versus 2. I thought it was strange that it was just kind of stuck in the middle of the day, just a 3 p.m. tip-off. And then this game on Saturday is
Duke must have played a later game.
No, it was
like
Kentucky, Texas or something. I mean, it was Kentucky.
I get that.
But this game, Alabama-Auburn, by the way, Vols in South Carolina tip off at 1. Vol Network coverage here on the Zone at 12:30. Oh, and of course, Burt Bertelkamp is hanging it up.
Yes.
This is his final game. He and Bob Kessling calling their final game together in that arena, and they will be honored at halftime. Legendary run for both, obviously. We've talked a lot about Bob as he announced his retirement a couple months ago, but Burt Bertelkamp, 26 years as the analyst. People forget how good he was as a player in the 60s. He still has the record for most assists in an NCAA tournament game for Tennessee men's hoops, 16 back in the day, but he is the guy that has every Tennessee fan around the world yelling money when the Vols hit a big 3. He will be greatly missed. Cannot wait to hear the next iteration of those broadcasts with Mike Keith on the call and TBD as his analyst, but man, it is the end of an era with Burt Bertelkamp hanging it up. He took a step back this year, wasn't traveling as much, but just talk about a Tennessee legend. Local guy, too, Bearden High School, and incredible run with he and Bob Kessler.
How I wouldn't say harassed, because obviously I'm sure Slay would be flattered to be thought of as somebody who fans would want to replace Burt Bertelkamp. But I mean, Slay got a million things going on right now. We just saw him when we were changing studios. I didn't think to ask him about that specifically, but I mean, Slay and Mike Keith would be great.
He had UAB and FAU last night down in Birmingham, Bartow Arena.
Just a quick football note. Jonathan Allen, the Commanders' defensive tackle, got released.
I was about to say, he requested a trade.
Yes.
Right? So there's another trade request that turns into a release around the NFL. Interesting. That is...
So you got Mike Keith and Pat Ryan doing football right now, and you've got Mike Keith and... TBD.
Doing basketball moving forward.
Is Mike just doing basketball and football?
Yes, that's what Bob did. He's talked about it, that he would never take baseball away from John Wilkerson. John Wilkerson, a legend for the Tennessee baseball fan base, and will continue on in that role.
All right, so what do you want out of the SEC tournament for Tennessee?
It's a great question.
Because, I really, I go back and forth on this. I'm dealing with this to my own extent. I don't know if I want Indiana to make the tournament in Mike Woodson's last year, and they would have to do a significant amount of winning.
That's ridiculous. He's gone anyway. You're just you're going to be so spiteful that you're going to...
I don't want to look at him anymore.
You just want it to be over? All right. I guess I could understand that. First of all, they need to lock in a top 4 seed so that they are in the quarterfinals. And if you do make a run, in that case, you're playing 3 games, right? But 3 hard-fought games. Again, the last time Tennessee won the SEC tournament, they were bounced in the second round against Michigan. Tennessee and Alabama went one and done in the SEC tournament last year and were both the last team standing in the SEC in the big dance. So I am incredibly conflicted, to be totally honest, on what I want out of Tennessee's SEC tournament. If they get to Sunday, then, and they're playing in that game, you're all in. You want them to win the game. But I'm not going to be devastated. I don't want Tennessee to just get punked immediately and just get bounced. Last year, that wasn't fun, watching them get routed by Mississippi State immediately, because you also want to be playing your best ball going into the NCAA tournament. So you don't want that bad taste in your mouth coming out of the SEC tournament. But I'm not going to be devastated, right, if Tennessee loses in the semifinal and just has that day to take a beat. As long as it's a good performance and they're not just... shooting 16% from 3 or whatever. A couple of years ago, I put a ton of stock in it because Tennessee was on that crazy drought where they hadn't won an SEC tournament since the 70s.
And then they did it.
And that was, for me as a Tennessee fan, that was very important to me. I really valued that SEC tournament because it hadn't been done in so long. But since they've done it, I can't say I'm going to be... the tournament's going to be fun. There's going to be great games. And obviously, I'm going to want them to win every time they take the court. But it is an interesting place to be. Now, for a team like Auburn, who is the 1 seed, they won the SEC regular season title a couple weeks ago, but they just lost to Texas A&M. They host Alabama. Auburn is 7.5-point favorite. But Alabama's a tough team to sweep this year.
Sure.
And Bama's on a bit of a slide. They lost to Tennessee. They lost to Florida. That's a hard team to hand a 3rd straight loss. So if Auburn is to lose at home on their senior day, 1:30 tip-off on ESPN tomorrow to Alabama, then suddenly the Tigers, after this incredible season, are going into the postseason on a bit of a losing streak and not playing their best basketball. So I wonder if maybe they'd value it a little bit more. Let's get right here. Because imagine Auburn, with the season that they've had going into the NCAA tournament on a 3-game losing skid.
Vandy needs to do some work for themselves in the SEC tournament after they fell apart at home against Arkansas. That was not a good way to kind of peter out after they had a 3-game win streak going and had I think they were sitting at about somewhere between 90 and 91% chance to make the tournament. Lunardi's got them down to 78%, which still, they've got a good chance to get there, but they're not a lock, as we were talking about just a few days ago.
And Georgia's playing for their NCAA tournament live, so that's a big game. Vanderbilt is in Athens tomorrow. It's an early tip-off, 11 a.m. So, yes, I do think a lot of people think the SEC tournament just doesn't matter. Sunday doesn't matter because it's the day of the selection show, which is kind of crazy. But I do think this year's SEC, it matters because you're getting quality wins at every turn. Like a semifinal run for Vanderbilt absolutely would lock them into the NCAA tournament, right? Especially if they're beating a Florida and Alabama, whoever, along the way. Like, that's still a quad 1 win that is on your resume. So I don't dismiss it. And for a team like Arkansas that could use a run, I don't dismiss it at all. But Sunday is irrelevant, and I'm surprised the SEC is still playing its championship on Sunday.
It just means more. We'll find out who it means the most for here in just a few days. We'll be broadcasting live from the SEC tournament at Bridgestone, which we're excited about. And coming up next, players who are out there with trade requests right now. How many should the Titans be in on, if any? We'll talk about it coming up next.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. In NFL news, just dropping, the Washington Commanders are releasing Pro Bowl defensive lineman Jonathan Allen, who reportedly requested a trade just a couple of weeks ago, and now the 30-year-old is on the market as a free agent. Allen is a two-time Pro Bowler in 2021 and 2022, the former first-round pick out of Alabama. In other NFL news, a trade within the AFC South went down on Thursday. The Jaguars trading wide receiver Christian Kirk to the Houston Texans in exchange for a 2026 seventh-round pick. And according to a report by Tom Pelissero, the Titans have tendered nose tackle Keandre Coburn. College basketball, the SEC women's tournament continues in the quarterfinals today in Greenville. Vanderbilt facing number 1 South Carolina, tip-off happening in moments. On the men's side, Tennessee finishes out the regular season at home against South Carolina Saturday. Senior day at Food City Center. Tip-off at 1 p.m. Ball Network coverage on The Zone starts at 12:30. Vandy closes out the season at Georgia. That tips off at 11 a.m. tomorrow. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
So this is the time of year where players make trade requests, players are granted permission to seek trades, and ultimately where a lot of players get cut. Teams are getting ready for free agency, of course, which begins in earnest next week. We'll look forward to that. A lot of busy stuff coming out of the Combine. Of course, the Combine sets the table for all this stuff, where the initial conversations are had, so that when we get to this time of year, teams can move pretty seamlessly through the process. Welcome into the second hour. We're happy to have you, Bert, Lucas, and me, until 1 o'clock. Dave McGinnis, Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, will be upon us in just about 15 minutes from now. And we will talk to Mac about his level of involvement versus what, and it varies by team, how different NFL head coaches get involved in the free agency meetings. How often are you meeting with agents? How many coaches or how many teams have coaches who have some level of roster control, i.e. New England, probably the most. I mean, is New England really the only one where we're looking at a head coach who has final say?
No. What do you mean? Andy Reid still exists?
Andy Reid.
Kyle Shanahan still exists?
Okay. So there's a couple. But those are probably the three off the top of your head. I don't think there probably aren't that many coaches that have earned that. I think McVay has probably earned some level of roster input, if not outright control. But Les Snead also, they do a good job working in conjunction there, so that's probably a pretty important part of the process for them. It varies by franchise. For the Titans, though, you got roster needs. You got players all over the place. You got players who want out of their certain situations. And most recently, the player that was released is Jonathan Allen, the defensive tackle, former first-round pick of the Washington football team, or Washington Commanders, who was coming off his career worst season, but also dealt with a significant amount of injury that led to a career worst season. Fair to expect that he might still be able to contribute at a reasonably high level for his next franchise. You also have DK Metcalf, who's asking out of Seattle, and who Seattle has said they would work towards finding a trade partner. Their request for a first and a third-round pick, basically the A.J. Brown deal, I think it's a bit rich. DK is not the player that Devontae Adams is, for example, nor A.J. Brown. He's the third of those three, but he's still a good player. He's a wide receiver 1, right? Nobody would dispute that DK Metcalf is not one of the best wide receivers in the sport.
And like Bert pointed out yesterday, the free agency class and draft class doesn't exactly have your pick of number 1 wide receivers. A lot of guys that are getting up there that I guess could still be your number 1 guys, Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams, but are aging. So the demand, the market is a little bit different when you can't exactly find that answer in the draft. Also, new free agent guard just dropped. The Houston Texans, according to Jordan Schultz, are releasing Shaq Mason. He started 15 games for the Texans last season. Local guy from Columbia, Tennessee. Columbia was a state champion at Columbia Central High School.
He's been around for a long time, Shaq Mason. The Patriots, obviously, for a good period of his career. Then I want to say he had another stop between New England and Houston.
Tampa.
For
a year.
So, free agent appeal, like DK Metcalf probably doesn't want to be traded to the Titans, right? We can assume.
I would think, and the Titans should not be in that mix.
No, not for a first and a third.
No.
Certainly.
Goodness, no.
They don't have a third. So they should not be in on Trey Hendrickson, even though these are two players at positions of need, and they're two players who are some of the best players at what they do. Not expecting them to be in the high-powered, high-priced trade market.
Yeah, Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, all of those guys. No.
Although I did have a conversation yesterday, Lucas, that I think is interesting, not with the waiter at St. Elmo's, about keep an eye on Kirk Cousins as an option, not the waiter at St. Elmo's?
Yes.
Yeah, he's got him on speed dial.
Well, yeah. I mean, hey, listen, those waiters at St. Elmo's.
Oh, they hear some
hear
stuff.
more football conversations than the vast majority of human beings will their entire lives.
How many groundbreaking trades and NFL moves have they gone home to their families? Like, you know what I heard Les Snead say today?
You know what went down in the Peyton Manning contract vault room where we got famously Kirby Allen Kirby very drunk before we took him out for a night on the town a couple years ago at the Combine. Kirby almost, by the way, did it again. He was he asked for some scotch when we went out to dinner with me, him, and Cosell at Harry and Izzy's, and the waiter came back and just double checking. Are you sure you want a $52 pour of scotch? And Kirby said, no. You got me the first time around.
The St. Elmo's waiter did not do him that courtesy when we were there.
Yeah.
He was very stunned.
Yeah. Poor Kirby.
But yeah, Kirk Cousins, the Falcons can come out and say, no, we want him to be our backup. But, of course they're going to say that.
And he can be had because he's a backup in Atlanta, and Atlanta's not going to, Atlanta can find another backup quarterback, right? It doesn't have to be Kirk Cousins for that price tag. It just so happens that they have Kirk Cousins and they have Michael Penix, so it works. And if, they could do a lot worse than that. But they are preparing for Kirk Cousins to be the backup quarterback there. Again, I'm not saying that the Titans are actively pursuing Kirk Cousins. I'm just saying they are keeping options available to them. As we've mentioned time and time again, they need to have multiple plans here on how to move forward. And as Cam Ward is in town today, currently meeting with the Titans as we sit here doing the show for his 30 visit, Cam Ward is an option. Kirk Cousins can be an option. God help us, Jake Brisket, Jacoby Brissett could be an option. Options are everywhere. They have multiple routes that they can pursue their quarterback solution here. But Jermaine Pratt, also the off-ball linebacker from the Cincinnati Bengals, really good player for a long time. Obviously, Cincinnati's defense fell off because they've lost a lot of talent on that defense, got Lou Anarumo fired. Now he's the DC of the Colts. Jermaine Pratt also seeking a trade. So is there any player that is currently out there actively with a trade request that the Titans should be in on? Because I'm having a hard time coming down with one. Not just because of the players that are out there, because I would love a Trey Hendrickson or a DK Metcalf if I was a Titans fan. But you're talking about contract stuff. You're talking about taking on contract stuff. And you're, in the case of DK, you're talking about an extension that's probably going to cost you ballpark $30 million a year.
Yeah. Yeah, that he's on the final year of his deal?
Yes, I believe so.
I have a hard time putting the Titans in on any of these guys in our hypothetical team building scenario exercise.
It would run counter to what they have said, right? It would be a pretty big upset based on what they have told us. And they don't have to tell us everything, but what they have told us is we want draft picks. We want more draft picks. We want lots of top 100 draft picks.
Yeah.
And a first and a third for DK Metcalf would be nonsense.
Yeah. It wouldn't be shocking to see them spend big on certain positions, like a $20 million on a Javon Holland at safety. But I would be shocked to see
that's different, though, because he's available. Exactly.
Or a Nick Bolton, if that's where they choose to spend. If they have money to spend, it would just be shocking to see them in on any of these big-name guys out there with trade requests.
So Myles Garrett also is a player, obviously, we didn't mention that has requested a trade, but we've talked about that to start the show. Jimmy Haslam won't meet with him. He's deferring those conversations to Andrew Berry, who has been very steadfast in his talks or in his lack of talks around acquiring Myles Garrett. And you've already had trades happen, right? Joe Thuney, do you know how many Super Bowls? I asked Bert this, and he didn't know the answer yesterday. Do you know how many Super Bowls Joe Thuney's played in?
Where has he played?
New England.
New England and Kansas City.
I think, was there another stop between New England and Kansas City?
No, right from there to there in
I'm
free
going to
agency.
say 6.
6.
Really?
6
Wow,
is the
that's
number.
impressive.
6 is the number for Joe Thuney. Christian Kirk has obviously been traded from the Jags to the Texans at this point in time, and there are a handful of players, Devontae Adams, Joey Bosa, Tyler Lockett, Draymond Jones, Sheldon Rankins, Aaron Rodgers, Alex Kappa, who's since signed a contract, Gardner Minshew, Evan Ingram, Darius Slay, and Javon Hargrave, who have all been released.
What about Cooper Kupp? If the Rams, it seems like they're going to release him.
He's going to make 20, or he counts against the cap for $20 million next year.
Not if they release him.
Sure.
If they release him, you're signing him as a free agent. You're not inheriting a contract. I'm not saying trade for him.
What's that cost, though?
I don't know. I don't know what the market for Cooper Kupp looks like.
This is kind of like the market for, Aaron Rodgers, obviously a different.
And Sean McVay has talked about, who knows? Maybe it could work out where he could stay here.
I want them to draft a damn wide receiver. I'm so tired of these.
Oh, they need to draft a wide receiver.
They could do both, right? In theory, but I guess you don't have to pick one or the other. But I don't know, man.
Ian Rappaport yesterday said the Rams are more likely to release Kupp than they are to trade him. They've not been able to find a partner. He's 31.
They need wide receivers. If Nick Westbrook-Akina costs $10 million a year, he's not coming back here.
Kupp will be 32 this year.
Is it so wrong for me to say I would rather have NWI back than to acquire Cooper Kupp?
It'd be on brand.
It would.
He's quite some time removed from being the offensive player of the year that helped the Rams, played a huge role in the Rams winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you would worry there about a sort of Tyler Boyd-like drop-off.
Also, doesn't he strike you as one of those West Coast guys? Like the whole thing with Bobby Wagner signing with the Commanders, the reason it was such a big deal is that he didn't want to leave the West Coast. Like he played in Utah, he went to school out there.
Oh, I don't know. Where did Cooper Kupp play in college?
Eastern Washington.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay. That was a legit thing with Mark. What?
You're just funny.
Just totally dismissing what he's saying.
Never on purpose.
He's born and raised in Washington, played in Eastern Washington, has literally only ever been on the West Coast.
Oh, is that true? He's from Washington?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yakima. I don't know how you say that.
I don't. But that was a legit thing. Now, Mariota was different, right? Because proximity to Hawaii is tough for somebody who's very family-oriented, and that was a big reason why Vegas made sense for Marcus after here, because he was interested in being more. He spent a lot of time on the West Coast. He'd fly the players to Los Angeles to do the throwing sessions and things like that. So it was a factor. And, like we talk about with family stuff, but I don't know. I think Cooper Kupp and Aaron Rodgers, I'm convinced, are going to have two of the biggest chips on their shoulders of any players in the NFL next year. Because Rodgers, 2 years removed from the Achilles, and Cooper Kupp, who wants to stay in L.A., was a huge part of bringing them a Super Bowl, and is a high work ethic player who's experienced some injury and some drop-off in terms of his skill. I'm not, outright opposed, depending on the cost, but I don't know. I would like for them to get younger and more organic at the wide receiver position as opposed to Cooper Kupp and Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd and all these Band-Aids that they keep trying to slap on it. Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio will join us coming up next. Obviously, he is somebody who has been in the league for a long, long time, been a head coach, obviously, before his media career, a position coach, and he's been involved with free agent. He's been involved with clearing cap. This is a pretty critical time of year for teams doing both, and we'll talk to Mac about that coming up next. It is Truck Month at Two Rivers Ford, one of the best times of year, and Two Rivers Ford always makes the car buying process fast, easy, and fun. They win literally awards for their customer service. It's so good. And they also offer you the quality American-made Ford product that cannot be beat, like the Ford F-Series. The F-Series trucks are the best trucks on the road. They have the durability. They have the towing capacity. They have the technology that rolls right over the competition. And when it comes to Ford trucks, no one has more trucks than Two Rivers Ford. Right now, Two Rivers has over 200 F-150s in stock. All the trims, the colors, the options available, and you can get exactly what you want at Two Rivers Ford, where they always sell their F-150s below MSRP. Everything is upfront and honest. Two Rivers isn't one of those dealers that advertises one price, and then when you get to the lot, it's something different. They pride themselves on doing business with honesty and integrity. They even have a non-commissioned sales team, which means no pressure on you throughout the course of the car buying experience. So take advantage of special truck month savings and test drive the baddest truck on the road at Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. I just told you that it's Truck Month at Two Rivers Ford. Dave McGinnis, Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio, does not drive a truck per se, but he does drive a Ford Explorer from Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. They make his visits with us and every other show on the station possible. They make Mac Talk possible. They make it all possible, just like Coach Mac, who joins us now. Mac, teams are culling their rosters in preparation for free agency. We've talked to you about clearing cap in Arizona and what a heavy lift that was at the time, and just how much more streamlined that process has become for teams at this point in where we are in the NFL.
Yeah, hey, Buck, it really has. I mean, just like anything else, technology and plus the number of people that you have in franchises now that are charged with concentrating and working on that. It absolutely has changed, but it's still the fundamental part of it is you've got to be able to interlock contracts, not only for the year that you're going into, but being able to Jenga puzzle them together for the years to come. So it's still the same type of thing. You just have more people and you have more technology available at your fingertips now to help in the process. But it's the process is still being able to put the salary cap together, not only for the present time, as I said, but for years in the future, because it makes a difference.
And it informs how teams will go about the draft, obviously, because free agency comes first and foremost, and teams or players who are cut right now are free to sign with teams, and players whose contracts will expire come the new league year will then be free to sign with teams. We know that there's legal tampering and illegal tampering. Indianapolis is where a lot of these conversations certainly begin and start to get worked through. But with Mac, I know you're embedded in your or immersed rather in your draft preparation with Rhett Bryan and the rest of the Titans radio crew, and we can't wait for that annual Titans radio draft coverage. It's always a staple around here. The free agent class in particular, how much time have you spent, I guess, kind of seeing what's out there, and how thoroughly do you keep tabs on that as teams go through the process that they're currently going through?
Well, you're right. First of all, those two things have to go on concurrently for clubs because they have a direct correlation to one another. The way that you're going to continue to build out your roster. So with a club, those things are going on side by side. I mean, they are separate entities, but they are joined. Now, myself, right now, I don't pay much attention to free agency because of this, as far as just looking at who's available. First of all, because, it's Rhett and I that put together this, I shared our initial board with you. Mm-hmm. There at the media center at the combine, the vertical and the horizontal board. It takes a while to get that thing done. And of course, with two of us doing it, I mean, it takes a lot of time to watch the tape and to get that in some semblance of an order, so that during our draft show that we're gonna have, we can be able to forecast who might be there. So anyway, your question was how much do I spend on free agency? I don't dig into free agency right now. I mean, I really don't, because I really don't have time to do it. And plus, free agency, to really understand free agency and to zero in on people, you have to know where your cap is exactly. At points in my career, I was very much embedded in the cap and in free agency, knowing how it was going to slot and put together. I don't have that information now. We have an idea because you've got the sites that have their, but you really don't know how clubs, unless you're embedded in it, how clubs are working their cap for the present and for the future. So, I try not to expound on things that I don't really, have a deep knowledge of. I know how it works, but I don't really invest in free agency right now just because I don't have time to do it because of the draft.
Coach Dave McGinnis is here for his weekly visit, for which we are all grateful. His visit's always made possible by Two Rivers Ford.
So when it comes to how it works, Coach Mack, this time of year, right before legal tampering, you've got all sorts of transactions, players that have trade requests or teams that are giving players permission to seek a trade that are suddenly getting released. And Jonathan Allen, for example, is suddenly on the market when maybe didn't think that might be the case when he requested a trade. My question is, how often is a free agency plan changing and evolving in real time for a team like the Titans that is going into this period with a certain kind of approach, and there's all sorts of moving parts that force you to go from plan A to plan B very quickly?
Yeah, and that's the truth, Lucas. You hit it. I mean, it's moving all the time. Until a contract is signed with a free agent, I mean, it is a fluid transaction, and it moves constantly, and it's at different points of time, before the draft, during the draft, and after the draft, it moves at a different pace. So you're exactly right. That's why you've got big departments now that are in charge of keeping track with it daily, and sometimes it's hourly the way that it changes. But it's constantly moving. Unless you're going to make just a massive move early on, and very seldom is that happening. You talk about players requesting trades. This is the time that they and the representation are doing that. Buck was there at the combine. The combine is a huge information pollination setting. It really is, because there's so much going on there that you have to be able to parse it out as to what's real and what's not. And in free agency right now, you really can't make a decision until everything is in place. And sometimes it's not in place until that line is signed.
And then in the midst of the build-up to free agency, you've got the 30 visits with draft prospects. Cam Ward with the Titans for his visit today, Coach, after a limited sample size that they got to be in the room with him at the Combine. How much more are you trying to learn about? What more are you trying to learn about a prospect, especially a quarterback prospect that you're considering with the number 1 overall pick that maybe you weren't able to learn about with the limited time that you have with him in Indy?
Yeah, I mean, these are critical. These 30 visits are critical meetings, and they also set up and dovetail into the meetings that you'll have at their workouts also. But when you have, it used to be 60 visits, 15 minutes. Now it's 45 visits, 18 minutes. But still, you're just touching the surface there, and especially when you're talking about quarterbacks, you spend a massive amount of time when they come in for 30 visits, doing a lot of things with them, and it's extremely important. It's just and look, evaluating players in the draft, especially with the 30 visits, it's all a linear progression, and this is a big part of that linear progression. And then, as I said, it'll go into the school workouts, and it's a big part of it, because now you've got them, explicitly in your place. You've got their attention, for the whole day and a half that they are with you. And then you can set up, because you can go visit them at their places as much as you want, as much as their time allows, and as much as their schedule allows. But when you have them in for that specific amount of time at your place after the combine, this is an important meeting. It really is.
I'm just so fascinated, Coach, at the timeline at which teams decide to take a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick and which quarterback it is. I mean, Brian Callahan said at the Senior Bowl that they knew, around Senior Bowl time that Joe Burrow was going to be their pick at number 1 overall. You've got those instances, and then others that maybe it takes longer to reach that conclusion. Maybe that's something the Titans are in the middle of now. I'm curious, for you and your time with the Rams, how long did that take for you guys to reach that conclusion on Jared Goff, that's the player you wanted to select at number 1 overall once you had that trade done?
Up until about 5 days before the draft.
Oh, wow.
And that's a great example. And I was intimately involved in that. And that was, it took a while. And it was a little bit different because, we had just moved from St. Louis, the whole organization, and we were in Oxnard, California. We were in a Marriott hotel out there for 5 months because our facility hadn't been built yet. And so when we brought Carson Wentz and Jared Goff in for extended periods of time to meet with them, it took that long. It took that long because we wanted to vet those, and we knew that going to make the trade with the Titans to get the number 1 pick, it was going to be a big decision. So it was right up until the week before. I mean, things start to narrow themselves out, but the more meetings that you have, and then you go in and everybody discusses it, and then you have a chance with the decision makers to sit down and weigh the pluses and the minuses. But it took a week till a week before. That's what it was then. So and it was an extensive process, which every process is. Now, clubs are different, and the types of players, who you're comparing every year are different too. But you spend, because it's a big decision. It's a big decision, and you want to try to make the best of your ability, the best decision for now and also in the future, especially when you're talking about a quarterback with that high a pick.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio is our guest always at this time on Fridays. His visit's made possible by the South's most trusted Ford dealer, Two Rivers Ford, in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. Of course, you can check out the official Titans podcast. You can see all the work that Mac and the Titans Radio crew are doing in preparation for the draft, in particular at TennesseeTitans.com. It's been very thorough, very interesting, a lot of these conversations. Mac, you're uniquely equipped to answer this question, and there's dealings with agents at every level of an NFL organization. And as you mentioned, organizations are different in who's in those meetings and how those meetings are handled. But how difficult is the balance of working with agents, understanding that they likely have multiple clients at the same position that they represent, and also that you have to have some level of trust, but you operate with a degree of, I would assume, skepticism in just how much of their cards they're actually showing you?
Well, I mean, and that's a legitimate question, but it's not. It's about relationships, just like anything else in any business. And the longer that you're in it, and the background that you have with people, I mean, I'll just take the organizations I've been with and myself personally. I would as you're working through the operation that is the National Football League, agents are a big part of it, and you get to know them just like you study players, and a trust relationship is very, very important, because yes, I mean, they've got their players' interest in mind, you've got the club's interest in mind, and so I mean, I over the years have gotten to know a lot of agents and visiting with them and talking with them, and then getting down to being a part of negotiations for what's going to happen with a player's contract. But again, it comes down to relationships, and it's extremely important. That's why, I mean, you can't manufacture the experience, and you can't manufacture the experience of relationships with people. That's why, you like to have the people that are dealing with them that have a background with it, because that's extremely important. And you bring up a really good point. But it comes down to, a lot of times, being able to say, okay, let's get it down to where it's really important. I understand, we understand all the fencing that goes on back and forth, but when it gets down to it, then you have to be able to both come to a conclusion because it has to be a win-win. It has to be a win-win. In all of these negotiations that I've ever been involved with over the 30-plus years that I did this, it can't just be one side wins and one side doesn't feel good about it. It has to be a win-win, Buck. And to have that, you have to be able to have some experience as to how to do it on both ends of it.
Mac, it's different every year, and players are different, and the places that they leave in free agency versus where they end up signing in free agency, all these things are pretty fluid year over year. But there's an example this year for us to work off of. Josh Sweat, the Philadelphia Eagles pass rusher. They obviously have many talented defensive linemen and edge players in Philadelphia that allows them to platoon and maximize what it is that those players do. And he's coming off a particularly healthy year. I just wonder, what the conversation looks like when you're dealing with a player who's more of a role player necessarily than a guy who's going to play 80+% or percent of the snaps for whomever might sign him to a legit deal or a lucrative deal in free agency, and how those conversations internally are had versus what the player did in their previous stop versus what your expectation of them is based on the money that you're getting ready to hand out.
Yeah, that's legitimate. I mean, that's legitimate, because every situation is different, because your present situation may be entirely different roster-wise than the situation that they have been playing in and that they're leaving, and also, their expectations, because clearly we all know players have a limited amount of time as to where they can make their money, and depending on how their career goes. I mean, it's a year-to-year process, and you're exactly right. Not one size fits all, but it has to be able to fit in with where you are presently, as an organization, or where you are presently as a roster, as to where the player is presently in his career. So it's a very, very important part, and both sides have to come to an agreement as to where both of those things, if they are different, can meet in the middle, so that, as I said, both parties feel like they are going to get the maximum out of what the agreement is. And so that's a big part of it. It really is. And that's part of being, again, experience will tell you, and experience helps you be able to find out where those two instances can meet in the middle. I've been involved in a lot of them, and you're right. They're all different because people are at different stages in their career, and clubs are at different stages in their roster build.
Hey, Coach Mack, Bert here. What's a reasonable price to pay for a pair of jeans?
You know what? It depends. It depends. First of all, I mean, if you really want them to fit right, I mean, you need to spend at least $200.
Yes, Mac is on my side. Yes, Coach Mac. Yes.
I didn't know we were going to be talking about jeans, but I got a pretty wide range of areas I can cover.
That's what I'm saying. This man this man contains multitudes, of course, and of course he's right about everything. Go ahead and tell Coach Mac that he's wrong about the price of a pair of jeans. Go ahead.
I guess I can.
Yeah, I'm wrong.
I can't.
I'm
These
wrong.
dopes.
I can't.
Mac, we've been working through this. Of course, we're solving all the great problems of the universe today, like what a reasonable price of a pair of jeans is. But I appreciate your input. Thank you so much for the time, and have a wonderful weekend.
See you guys. Always a pleasure. See you.
That's the main coach. He laughs as he leaves or hangs up the phone. Idiots.
Tyler on the F&M Bank chat says it doesn't count. He's from Texas. Everything's bigger there.
No, I'm right. You're wrong. Nothing makes me happier. $200 at least, he said. At least. If you want them to what? Fit correctly.
You sound like the dad from Matilda. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm big, you're little, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I agree. That's how I live my life.
It was Danny DeVito, so he was kind of wrong. You're not that big, Danny.
I never saw Matilda.
What? Miss Trunchbull? You never saw her do the hammer throw through that girl by her pigtails?
I've never seen Matilda either.
What? You both need to watch Matilda this weekend. It's a fantastic movie.
I've never felt more right in my life than Mac agreeing with me on the price of a pair of jeans.
Oh, man.
$228, baby. Eat it.
Guess I'm going jean shopping.
615-737-1045. Do I have things in the nebulous prize bucket to give away for Friday Fire?
You do. It's a pair of tickets to go see a Nashville SC game.
Ooh, okay. Who do they play?
Portland Timbers tomorrow night. If you can't make it and you don't win the tickets, you can, of course, tune in right here on the Zone, 7:30 kickoff. But back home looking for their first win of the season.
And the weather should be lovely.
Yes.
For this match. So you can call us, 615-737-1045. But you must tell us what your Friday Fire is, the thing that made you happy, the thing that warmed your heart during the course of this week. Personal, professional, sports, or otherwise, give us your Friday Fire. We'll send you to Nashville SC. We'll give you ours, too, coming up next. for the opportunity to win a couple of Nashville SC tickets to see them take on Portland. 615-737-1045 is the number. Tell us your Friday fire. What's the thing that makes you feel good or made you feel good throughout the course of the week? The moment of positivity. Bert thinks that's hard for me to do, but it's just simply not true. 615-737-1045. We will get to your Friday fire here in just a little bit. I will start the bidding. Stephen A. Smith is my Friday fire. Do you see he got a new contract from ESPN?
Yep.
5 years, $100 million for Stephen A. Smith. That's an average annual value of what, Lucas? Do the math quickly.
16. No, 20. The long list.
It would have been so real if you said 16.
The list of NFL players.
I know, I have it in front of me.
That he makes more money than. Lengthy.
It's so good. Now, I'm under no illusions that I will make $20 million at some point in my career. But I'm happy anytime I see anybody in our world making that kind of money, because that sets a new ceiling, and it's good for everybody involved. Stephen A. Smith is a king for making $20 million a year to do what he does. I have so much respect for that man. I am so happy that he's getting paid. He is worth every penny. He is likely worth more, even if LeBron James is running up on him last night to tell him what a bleep hole he is.
Quit talking about my son, he
for
said.
saying things about Bronny James. Stephen A. Smith will make more than in the coming years. Marshawn Lattimore, Marlon Humphrey, Trayvon Diggs, Ryan Ramczyk. I know Khalil Mack is coming off a contract, but he would have made more than Khalil Mack, who was averaging $19.2 million on his most recent contract. He will even make more, Lucas, than Titans corner L'Jarius Sneed.
Wow.
Yes.
Who has more power at ESPN, Stephen A. or Pat McAfee?
At ESPN, Stephen A. Because Stephen A. Stephen A. did an interview at the Super Bowl I saw where he said, well, the money's been agreed to, since October. We're good here. I'm just trying to get through the vetting of all the lawyers and me getting to do what's the Fox Sports show Fox News show that he does. He goes on Hannity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he makes appearances.
That's part of the deal, right? That he gets to explore all sorts of other career avenues.
He gets to own his podcast rights, which is not on ESPN. He's getting his podcast advertised on First Take, which is ESPN's most important property right now. I know McAfee's not an ESPN employee, though. He is, but he's an ESPN contractor. Stephen A. has more power at the worldwide leader than Pat McAfee. If you ask me if the two of them went head to head, who comes out playing on the other side? It's for sure Stephen A.
My Friday fire is Centennial High School, who made a big splash hire with their football program. This was announced early in the week. Jay Graham is the new head coach of the Centennial Cougars. Now, Jay Graham was an all-SEC running back at Tennessee, went on to have a 5-year NFL career, and then started a long career in the college game. He has been the running backs coach for South Carolina, 2 different stints at Tennessee. He was the running backs coach in 2013 when Florida State won their national championship under Jimbo Fisher. Texas A&M, lengthy career. He most recently was the special teams coach at East Tennessee State. Before that, he was Nick Saban's special teams coordinator and tight ends coach in 2021. Massive hire for the Centennial Cougars. Huge congrats to them. I immediately texted Kevin Dyson after the fact, obviously the principal at Centennial. Just huge move, and look forward to covering Jay Graham, Centennial Cougars in 2025. Love to see it in Middle Tennessee.
Pretty cool.
All right, my Friday fire. I don't know if you guys, have you ever watched Around the Horn?
Yes.
Of course you have.
R.I.P.
A bunch of times. And another thing that doesn't happen in media is people don't get to get their flowers.
In real time?
Generally, most people get fired, and then you never hear from them again. They might get to put a Twitter post out thanking everybody. But the run that Woody Page is about to be on Around the Horn is incredible. And good for Harry Lyles for giving him his flowers in real time. I hope they do this every single show when they get FaceTime for the winner. Here was Harry Lyles talking about Woody Page.
show, a lot of us grew up coming home from school and watching this particular program, and one of the people that we always saw was Woody Page, and whether you loved him or hated him, you always tuned into this show to see what that man was going to say. That also goes for those of you watching at home. I have to say, you still see Woody's influence all over sports media today in terms of the shows that you watch, the styles that people have, and it gave me a path to know where I wanted to be in my career. Being on this show is one of those things, and Woody Page, I would not be here without your influence, man. I appreciate you.
I still think Woody would rather have the win, but there we go, Woody. We love you.
Very cool.
Good for them.
What was cooler is they posted like
The post show.
the post show,
Yep.
and like Woody Page is crying.
Yeah,
Like,
man. That's, I mean,
it's 23 years. I'm old enough to
What an
remember
era.
Tony Reale as the PTI stat boy.
yep.
And I wouldn't, I won't pretend that I've watched Around the Horn a ton here in the last couple of years, but like, it's just such a good concept. I'm surprised it's going away, but I'm sure it'll be First Take hour number 5 or whatever they're
How many people got their start on that show?
So many.
They're like, you're not good enough to do hits, but we're good enough to slide you on this show. Can you be funny? Can you be
Bob
personable?
Ryan, Tim Cowlishaw, Jackie McMullen.
Pablo Torres, like tons of people.
Pablo Torre.
Sorry.
Little known fact, Woody Page, VFL.
Hey!
University of Tennessee in the 60s. He's from Memphis.
Really? I had no idea.
Let's get Woody on the show.
That's probably a tough get right now.
Nah, I can do it.
Okay.
I'll pull in some favors.
Yeah.
I know Woody.
S. Dot says, yeah, Bug, give people their flowers like Mike Woodson. No, you can eat it. 615-737-1045 for the opportunity to win those Nashville SC tickets to their upcoming match against Portland. Let's start with Jessica. Hello, Jessica.
Hey there.
What you got for us?
So my Friday find is that my husband finally is has fixed his Jeep after a couple of weeks of trying, and when he is happy, I am happy.
What was wrong with it?
Well, we got it used, and he loves working on it. It's kind of his midlife crisis Jeep, so he's just been making it better.
A midlife crisis Jeep. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Remember to stay on hold for the opportunity to win the tickets. That's a good submission. Have you ever worked on a car? There's no way.
No, definitely not.
Not even changing your oil? Can't either one of you change your oil?
Hell no.
A tire?
I send up the Two Rivers Ford bat signal and somebody comes to my home.
I can at least change a tire. That is the bare minimum.
Hell no. I've got AAA just so I don't have to change tires.
Windshield wiper fluid? You can't. I'm saying the bare minimum.
Yeah, windshield wiper fluid is easy.
I don't even know where the battery is in my car.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't even know I assume it's had his battery somewhere in there, but...
This is a rare moment of national security issue back here where every producer at the Zone is
Now,
in
what
the
the hell is
producer
going on
studio.
back there?
If
What-
something
is
happened,
Jackson just
I
back
don't
there
know
forgetting
what
to
we
post
would do.
podcasts again and being
I
useless?
don't know what we would do if someone got hurt.
Someone got hurt, yeah, because that collection of people. Other than Rhett Bryan, I trust none of you.
What?
Yes. Mike is next. Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we should resort to if people are going to. I can literally hear him driving around in the background. Lauren is next. What you got, Lauren?
Hi, Lauren, Mount Juliet, Tennessee. As might not be sports related, although go Vols. I am a veterinarian, and I'm hopefully today getting the approval to foster horses getting pulled out of kill pens.
Oh,
all right.
That is a very good
Congratulations.
Friday Fire. Leader in the clubhouse, Lauren.
Buck would also take a horse. How many? Do you have any extras?
No.
Buck, you got a fenced-in backyard. You wouldn't put up a pony for a little bit?
Do not put a horse back there. That would be cruel.
Oh, it would. Come on, he doesn't mow that yard. Someone else does it. If you had a horse, you wouldn't have to pay someone to mow that yard.
It's a tiny little yard.
That-
Horse needs to run.
That is one of the things that you're not supposed to buy if you ever make like actual money. It's a horse, a boat, and a restaurant.
Listen, that little backyard, do you know what the alternative is? She just said a kill pen.
Yeah, that's fair.
So do you want him to live in Buck's backyard or do you want him to go to the glue factory? Which one are we talking about here?
Are you a horse guy? My fiance's terrified of horses.
Terrified of them?
But I think they're awesome.
I mean, I used to take horseback riding lessons 100 years ago. I mean, like when I was really little. I We did like some trail ride thing a couple of years ago in Colorado when we were out in Steamboat for a friend of mine's wedding. But yeah, I'm not anti-horse, certainly. They're beautiful creatures. I don't know, I'm not interested in having a horse, but I'm sure they're lovely. All right, we'll get one more submission here in just a second. How about Trent for our last submission for the day? Hey, Trent.
Hey, okay, so I just had the craziest experience of my life. So I actually worked for U.S. Pest. I was at a customer's house, treating her house, and I was rolling my stuff up, getting ready to hop in my truck. And her neighbor's tree I heard cracking, and the tree was literally about to fall on my neighbor's house, which it ended up doing, and I was able to get in there and tell her to get out of her house before it fell on her house. But my heart's beating. I just figured I should call and let you guys know because it was a crazy experience. I've never seen anything like that happen in my life.
That's wild. I'm glad everybody's okay from that situation.
Still not going to win soccer tickets, though.
Well, at least he can speak.
I had a horse when I was growing up. His name was Taz. He was a miniature horse. He was mean as hell. And he would bite you if you were out in the pasture, like feeding the cows or the goats or whatever. He would sneak up, like silent-like, and bite the hell out of you. So I am not scared of horses, but Taz was a mean horse.
They have an interesting sense of humor sometimes. They know how to mess with people.
Horses?
Yes.
I had
very
no
smart.
idea.
You're about to find out there's going to be one in your backyard.
Yeah,
I'm telling you,
that's right.
Lauren, stay on the line.
So Lauren wins, right? Rescuing horses.
Horses out of a kill shelter.
Yeah.
That is.
Great job, Trent. Congrats to Trent and Jess.
Well done. 615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation. Coming up next, we will take a dip into free agency and talk about who our dream free agents are. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. NFL transactions coming down today. The Washington Commanders are releasing star defensive lineman Jonathan Allen. The 30-year-old requested a trade recently and now is a free agent, as is veteran offensive lineman Shaq Mason, who is reportedly being released by the Houston Texans at 31 years old. Mason is a local product out of Columbia, Tennessee. College basketball, the SEC women's tournament happening in Greenville. Quarterfinal action at halftime. Vanderbilt trailing number 1 South Carolina 48-23. Tomorrow on the men's side, Tennessee finishes out the regular season at home against South Carolina. Senior Day at Food City Center with tip-off at 1 p.m. Vol Network coverage on The Zone begins at 12:30. Vanderbilt will close out the season at Georgia. That tips off at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Nashville Soccer Club is back home looking for the first win of the season as they host the Portland Timbers at Geodis Park Saturday night. Kickoff at 7:30. Pre-game coverage here on The Zone begins at 7 p.m. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Who's your dream free agent as we get ready for teams to start the Christmas shopping process? Right around the corner, March the 10th, legal tampering. March the 12th, a new league year, which means contracts expire, players become available, they're free to sign with teams, and round the process goes. It's the next touch point that's ahead of us. Now that we've gotten through the franchise tag, the combine, 30 visits underway. Of course, Cam Ward here in Nashville today, making his 30 visit with the Tennessee Titans. I'm sure there will be some interesting notes that come out of that. But who's your top free agent? Because a lot of you would have said Trey Smith. Many Titans fans, understandably so. He's a VFL. He's a quality human. He's a really good player. It's a position of need. But the Chiefs need him more. Or the Chiefs need him. They think they need him more. Enough to franchise tag him at $23 million, and maybe they work out a long-term deal that sees Trey Smith in Kansas City for the foreseeable future, but he's helped them win Super Bowls. He's the best offensive lineman that they have, and his quarterback just got ravaged in the Super Bowl.
After trading Thuney, he's not going anywhere.
He is there to stay for the foreseeable future, and that is the thing that made the most sense. That was never the free agent that I was most interested in, because it's a non-premium position. I'm just going off of what your new front office is telling me about draft, develop, and retain, and that's very much not the vibe that paying a non-premium position, the highest paid guard right now is Trey Smith because he's making $23 million next year, but the next highest is the Eagles guard Landon Dickerson, who was at $21 million a year, 20 plus for that kind of a player when you have needs everywhere, and you need to find your own Trey Smith or Landon Dickerson at some point. You need to find your own wide receiver as opposed to paying somebody else's. You need to find your own pass rusher as opposed to paying somebody else's. But you understand that you can't get everything done. The reporting yesterday was that Javon Holland was a player that the Titans were interested in. At the top of the free agent market, the former Dolphins safety that they did not tag and let walk. Greg Cosell yesterday on the podcast called him a five-tool player. And while I think a lot of people would probably not, a lot of fans would probably be like, what, are you going to pay a safety $15 to $20 million a year? Are you nuts? Amani Hooker with one of the biggest cap hits at safety in the league this year. You're going to double down on that, especially after the money that you spent in the secondary last year, which, I think in part got somebody fired. But your secondary wasn't good last year. And your secondary didn't play last year. So the more good players that you can add and build out your front organically, Javon Holland's probably my dream free agent get because he can do a lot of different things for that defense. For a while, though, Lucas, I would have said Josh Sweat until you brought up yesterday or 2 days ago, at some point this week, that he and Harold Landry had a similar amount of pressures last year. But what is dissimilar about Harold Landry and Josh Sweat is that Harold Landry plays a significantly higher percentage of snaps than does Josh Sweat. And I asked Greg Cosell about this. You can go check out the latest install with Greg Cosell. You can also come to the live show where we will talk about the free agent class that the Titans put together and the draft class the Friday after the draft, less than 1 week removed from the NFL draft. We are nearing the 100 tickets sold mark. We want you guys to get in there for the $30 general admission if that is something that you would prefer over the VIP option before they sell out, because the further that we get through the offseason process, those will sell out. Again, Friday, May the 2nd at the Hutton Hotel in the Analog Room. Greg Cosell is flying in to do our annual live show where we will take your questions, we will break down tape, we will talk about these players, and we will certainly be talking about a new quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, which is always interesting. So we'll look forward to seeing all of you there, or as many of you there that get in there before we sell out of the 250 tickets that we have to sell on Friday, May the 2nd. But this was Greg Cosell talking about Josh Sweat, because the question that I asked him was, Greg, this player doesn't play a lot of snaps, and Greg is based in the Philadelphia area, just outside. So obviously he breaks down a lot of Eagles tape, and they've been good, and they just won the Super Bowl. So what's the risk reward for a player like Sweat specifically, understanding that he plays a premium position and he's probably going to get paid?
Oh, Buck, that to me is the best point, and that's a great point, because Sweat did not have a good year in 2023, and then he came back this year and had a very good season, and again, played very well in the playoffs. But I think you have to be careful. And again, another player I've watched probably every one of his snaps as a Philadelphia Eagle. You have to be careful that if you sign him, just what you said, I don't believe, because of the injuries he's faced throughout his career, he came into the league with a really serious knee injury that happened, I guess, in college. And he even hurt his knee in high school, if memory serves me correctly, because he was a top 3 recruit in the country, regardless of position, coming out of, I believe, the Virginia Beach area. I think that general area. I could be wrong on the town. But with the Eagles, he was able to play as somewhat of a rotational player. And I think if you sign him, you have to understand that that's likely what he is at this point in his career, given the injuries that he has, the mileage on his body. He's going to be 28, something along those lines. Not that that's old, but, with all the other factors, you can't sign him with the expectation that every week he's playing 70 snaps, because I don't think you get the best out of him if you think that way. So I think you have to be really careful when you sign him. You have to deploy him in a way that maximizes his strengths.
That's enough to take me out of the Josh Sweat market.
Josh Sweat.
Because I don't want another Arden Key. I mean, Arden's fine if he was just a third down player, but Arden Key, and to his credit, I think he's worked really hard to try and be a 3-down player, but that's just not who he is.
He is a more productive player than Arden Key. He was on the field for 622 snaps in the regular season. This is according to Pro Football Reference. Landry, what do you think Landry's number is? Josh Sweat, 622 in the regular season in 2024.
I bet it's somewhere close to 800.
880.
Yeah.
Yeah, so well over 200 more snaps and very similar numbers. Landry had 1 more sack, and their pressure numbers are almost neck and neck. Now, you could also say Josh Sweat, much more efficient than Landry, matching that production with, that disparity in snaps.
Yeah,
but I also
who is he playing with? He's playing with Milton Williams, who's the best interior defensive lineman available on the market. He's playing with Jalen Carter, who's
much better supporting cast.
I would argue. I mean, who is more disruptive on a down in, down out basis? And again, I don't do this to I know people try to turn it into, you're taking a shot at Jeff Simmons or something like that. But Jalen Carter is a special player, right? He, I think, has entered into the conversation as one of the most disruptive interior defensive linemen in the sport. And I think he's vaulted himself into that conversation at top 5 at his position, where Jeff has also been in that conversation. But these things change on a year-by-year basis. He's coming off a really good defensive line that platoons. The Titans do not have that. They have Jeff. Arden is a situational player that has been asked to play as a starter. Landry is a very well compensated, and I wouldn't quite call Harold situational, because I think he does a couple of different things. I like that you can drop him back. I like that he's versatile enough. He can do the coverage stuff.
He plays too many snaps to be situational.
But
he's on the field constantly.
But that's always been the case. And, the production is not, I know that you've cited 9 sacks before, but I need him to be more of an individually impactful player other than cleaning up sacks that the interior creates. And I'm not saying that every Harold sack was that, but a lot of them are.
Yeah. Josh Sweat made himself some money in the Super Bowl, you would think. Same goes for Milton Williams. Big games in the Super Bowl. We'll do that when you're a pending free agent. There are ties there. I mean, Denard Wilson, Tracy Rocker on that Eagles coaching staff defensively when Josh Sweat was obviously earlier in his career. So I don't know. I mean, maybe a Josh Sweat and a draft pick if you are moving on from Harold Landry. But yeah, those two are not the same with the difference in snap counts.
You would love to get to the point where you can platoon and be rotational that way. But who's your
what about a Nick Bolton? The Titans could get a linebacker to play opposite Kenneth Murray. They could also cut Kenneth Murray and save over $7 million in cap space.
Which I add parenthetically, I am so for, and it's nothing personal against Kenneth. He's a fine person. He's a team captain. He's not nearly a good enough player.
There's obviously the connection with Borgonzi, and Nick Bolton would be a pricey add in free agency. But he's an excellent player, and the Titans desperately need linebacker help. It's a huge position of need. It's a position of need we haven't talked about all that much. But when you're talking about, this segment was dream free agent targets. So we got to talk about guys that are at or near top of market for their position. Being selective in certain areas like a Javon Holland or a Nick Bolton.
Bert, do you have one?
My dream free agent is the horse that you're going to adopt for your backyard, and I have some names to pitch for you.
Is this horse a rock band?
No, this is just horse. Just horse. All of these are horse names. How do you feel about naysayer?
That's too close to
I like it.
Let a naysayer know.
Okay, what about hoof?
Just name it Lank.
Hoof-hearted.
Hoof-hearted?
You have to say it fast. Hoof-hearted.
Next.
Glue stick.
Glue stick?
Yeah, that's where he would have been at if he...
that's what I'd call him if he was losing races.
Okay, what about a pony soprano?
That's the winner.
Yeah,
No Colt 45? You're not cool on that?
That would be fitting for North Nashville, but not necessarily. I think Pony Soprano is pretty good.
Yeah, Pony Soprano is my favorite.
Man.
So we've decided Buck will have a pony in his backyard. Very excited. If you have children in that neighborhood that would like to ride Buck's horse in his backyard, all you got to do is hit me up, let me know, slide in my DMs. I can set those guys up. I think
you look like somebody that would be at a carnival giving little children pony rides.
This is my business venture from now. I want to rescue farm animals, stow them in Buck's backyard. So sheep, pigs, goats, small cows, horses, owls, if they don't have somewhere to stay. I would be down with any, because they stay in barns. I would be cool with any farm animals that need a place to stay. Let me know. I have a place for you to stay.
Keep that mafia theme going and, obviously don't, not the horse head in the bed necessarily, but just a live horse in his backyard is what he wakes up to in the morning.
This would only make sense if my eventual plan comes to pass and I start buying up my neighbor's property and then turning them into my yard and just expanding my own property, as I'm dreaming about at this point in time, because I don't have a problem with my neighbors, but
Pony Sopranos.
I would like to not have neighbors.
Really good.
Pony Soprano is great.
Feed him some cannoli.
What?
That was terrible. I'll give you a laugh.
No! I didn't even know what he was talking about.
Cannoli.
Oh, if you had a sheep, they could give you gobba wool.
So much better.
The quarterbacks we haven't talked about for the Titans next. Put the ball in your court and call Trajan Wealth today, because you've definitely asked yourself the question whether or not you're going to have enough money when you retire or when you should start to draw from Social Security. Don't let these questions keep you up at night, and let me introduce you to a team that's there to keep you on the right track and guide you through those processes. It's Trajan Wealth, Trajan Wealth. Trajan Wealth is not just any financial firm. They're your partners in securing your financial future. And they're more than just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today. Don't wait around. 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000. Or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
We've got the trucks, all the trims, all the towing, all the bells and whistles, and all at Truck Month Savings. Two Rivers Ford is Ford Truck Central.
Welcome back to the show. We are fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. Things not going the Commodores' way in the quarterfinal of the women's SEC tournament. Right now, 57-44 in favor of the number one seed, South Carolina.
Made a little bit of a push. I mean, it was a 20-plus point deficit, now 13. But, yeah, South Carolina, that's a tough draw.
They're a juggernaut.
Joe Lenardi quickly put out his bracketology about an hour ago, and he says, as Ole Miss goes to Florida Saturday to finish out the regular season on the men's side, a Florida loss opens the door for Tennessee and Alabama to get back into the one seed conversation.
What is the who is the sports TV or media personality that more lives in a closet for the vast majority of the year and they just bring him out and dust him off than Joe Lunardi. He is going to survive there until the end of time.
The Bristol bunker.
Because no one knows where he actually is as ESPN goes through, these regular layoffs at this point. That Joe Lunardi will last there until he decides he doesn't want a bracketology anymore.
His Twitter location says bracket bunker and in parentheses classified.
For his own safety at this point in time. It's always funny to me because we're gonna get to some quarterback conversation here in just a second, but like ESPN, a lot of places will hire ESPN cast-offs or layoffs or people who leave ESPN for one reason or another, and like Mark Schlereth will pop up, and I'll be like, where has he been for the past 6 months or years at this point in time from doing ESPN? Or like, is Eric Mangini still doing media?
I don't know.
He was around for forever on TV, and then just all of a sudden he vanished.
You know who else you kind of see when hockey gets popular again? Barry Melrose.
Yes.
What a silver fox he is.
Not anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was for a while ESPN's like only hockey guy.
Isn't he having some health stuff?
Oh, is he?
Yeah. Barry I think had to he retired.
Oh, dang. That's my fault.
Yes, it is.
He did retire Parkinson's. He retired 2 years ago.
Don't you feel
after
like
a Parkinson's diagnosis? Then ESPN got the NHL rights, and now they've got all sorts of hockey, and they do a great job covering hockey over there.
Oh yeah, PK. PK's had a
PK is a shooting star.
PK Subban has had his now that he's been adopted into the first take rotation, he is getting more and more shine, and also the Four Nations tournament was a big part of that. I think.
Mark Messier, the star power they have up there with Steve Levy and Sean McDonough kind of driving the boat.
Sean McDonough should just do every hockey game that ESPN has. I know that's not feasible, but he's excellent. Anyway, quarterbacks that we have not talked about going to the Titans. You want to start with Jackson Dart?
Okay, so you're going with quarterbacks in the draft that we haven't talked about yet.
Everywhere. All manner of quarterbacks, because I brought up earlier, I had a conversation with somebody yesterday that's in the know on these things about the Titans and a potential option of trading for Kirk Cousins depending on how free agency goes and telling me that they haven't been that hot on the trail of free agent quarterbacks right now, which would be a surprise.
Yeah, because when I look at the Titans at quarterback, like, okay, you are against Sam Darnold at a pricey deal.
Yes.
You are a believer that they should trade back.
Yes.
Okay.
That is my preference above all else.
All right. So if you want both of those things, no Darnold and a trade back, then I'm looking around like, who in the world is going to start at quarterback for this team in 2025? And I have a really hard time believing the Titans will go into this year with ex-castaway Mac Jones, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco. And I get patience over panic, but it's also the franchise that has fired a GM, a coach, and a GM in each of the last 3 years after bad seasons.
Which is why I wanted to ask Burke Nihill the question that I did yesterday after we got done talking about the stadium stuff, because, Burke Nihill is as close to a representation of ownership. He's not a team owner, but he's the team president, and ownership has empowered him to speak on their behalf and her behalf specifically. Like, how much patience are they actually getting? Like, realistically here, what's the vibe? And he was very complimentary of all the parties involved and reiterated the fact that they intend to be as competitive as humanly possible every year. That's the goal. But I think everybody that I talk to offline with that organization is preparing to take their lumps again in 2025.
Sure. But to what degree, right? Because Jacoby Brissett as your starting quarterback in 2-15, all bets are off once again.
2-15,
right?
Don't even say that.
But I'm just saying. So if you want them to trade out of one and not take a Cam Ward, and you don't want them to sign a Sam Darnold, what in the world do you suggest they do at quarterback?
I have thought about this for quite some time because it's a fair point by you. Ideally, what I would like for them to do is find one of these reclamation projects on a one-year deal and to find the next Sam Darnold with this quarterback expert that they have hired to be their head coach. And if that also includes either drafting Cam Ward at number 1 overall or taking a quarterback later in the draft that they feel like can be a more reliable backup than Will Levis is, I'm good with the next quarterback reclamation project being here. If Brian Callahan is up to the task of being able to do this with a quarterback that's more suited to him, I'll allow him, I'm like I've got any saying is to say that I'll allow him to have another opportunity here, but you get my meaning. Like I will have grace with Brian Callahan getting to be more selective about the quarterback situation, even as I don't want him running the draft because I don't know how long he's going to be here.
But we just talked the other day about the circumstances in which these resurgent quarterbacks have excelled under.
And I brought up the idea that, one, they have to have some talent of their own volition. Two, a lot of these quarterback reclamation projects have gone to places where they have high-level wide receivers. Tannehill here with A.J. Brown, Darnold with Justin Jefferson, Goff with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like there has to be things here to help them succeed. And this is not a super impressive wide receiver draft class to find the next one of those guys. So it's imperfect. I'll acknowledge that. But that would be my preference over paying Sam Darnold anywhere close to what he wants. If Sam Darnold comes in closer to 30, as I certainly know the Vikings expect him to do, which is why they're keeping their doors open for him, I still don't love it because I want to know how many years you're giving him, but I'm more willing to hear that conversation.
And they're continuing to evaluate these quarterbacks at the top of the draft. Very interesting to hear Coach Mack say they were not sure on who they were going to draft number 1 overall, the Rams in 2016, until 5 days before.
No, but it was a pretty close conversation between the two of them. If you go back and read the analysis on Goff and Wentz coming out of college, one obviously played at a much lower level of college football, but I mean, Goff was at what, Cal?
Cal.
Like Cal was not a world beater, but he was putting up incredible numbers in Power 5 at the time football. And, the North Dakota State program has put out a lot of professional football players, and Carson Wentz was a high-level player for a period of time in his life. So it does get closer, but that was close the entire way through. This is not. It's Cam Ward, I don't want to say or else, but it's kind of Cam Ward or else.
Yeah, at this point, are we saying Shedeur Sanders is closer to Jackson Dart than he is Cam Ward?
Yes.
Okay, that separation has kind of been established.
To me. And,
yeah, that's what the discussion seems to be.
And I've asked, I'm not just basing that off my opinion, obviously. I've asked Cosell about this. I've asked a variety of different people who I trust. Trevor Sikkema. I know Emory Hunt caped up for Shedeur and Cam being pretty close together there because what he said is they win in different ways. But the point is that they're battle-tested. They've been through FCS. They've been through a couple of different things in their collegiate careers that would at least equip them with the tools to go into a less than ideal situation and try to make the best out of it. And I understood his point on that because that matters. That mental makeup matters.
I would be surprised if the move was bring in a veteran and draft a quarterback later. Second round, Jackson Dart.
What? It doesn't have to be later, though. I'm fine with them bringing in a quarterback, and if they're sitting in number 1 overall, then take Cam. I'm good with that. Let him sit.
But if we're talking about the quarterbacks that we haven't really discussed, QB options that are under discussed, and you mentioned Jackson Dart.
Yeah. Why not?
I don't know about that plan. I just feel like if you're going into a draft and you need a quarterback and you have the number 1 overall pick, you could love Jackson Dart. But
because in that scenario, Lucas, I'm assuming that they've traded the number 1 overall pick and they've got some flexibility.
For sure. And they've got draft picks and see what you got in a Jackson Dart as a rookie and bring in a veteran to stay a Flacco, whoever. But I don't know. You don't judge these things based on what would get the fan base excited, but I feel like that's the thing that the fan base would say, okay, I get that we acquired more draft capital, but if we needed a quarterback, why don't we just get the best quarterback?
Yeah. Caleb on YouTube says, Buck is a hater. When we draft Sanders, don't jump on the bandwagon. We will keep the receipts. Well, one, I don't bandwagon like that. I mean, I do of teams that I would be interested in being a fan of, but not the team that I cover. And, Shedeur has dealt with worse people than me, saying worse things about that than I think there's a talent. There is a clear and obvious talent disparity. That's not hating. That's the facts. The NFL are the NFL organizations that have also deemed there to be a significant gulf between these two players. Are they haters? No, it just means that you have to have a better situation or a more advantageous situation for one to succeed over the other based on the skill set that they bring as prospects. What they become as pros, not a single one of us know.
Robert brought up yesterday the idea of, let's say the Vikings want to run it back with Darnold and then J.J. McCarthy wants to look elsewhere.
What are you giving up for J.J. McCarthy, though?
And that's the question. When Mike Florio talked about it in the audio, he said a top 5 pick. Well, there's only two teams in the top 5 who need quarterbacks. I doubt either one of them, especially when he was drafted with the 10th pick, and then the dude got hurt. It's kind of like a car lot situation. You already drove J.J. off the lot. I'm not giving you the $40,000 you paid for him back. I would guess, and who knows, right? The Vikings may value him differently. I would guess a high second. I would guess the Giants' second-round pick would be enough to get J.J. McCarthy, especially if they give Darnold any kind of long-term contract that looks decently better than what Kirk Cousins got in Atlanta. If you're stuck with him for 2 years, not like you were, where they were able to get out from underneath Kirk, I would say, yeah, you just get what you can get for him and keep moving. You're a playoff team. You don't have time to keep this asset on your team when you could move him and get something else for this team right now.
As long as we're talking about quarterback options that we haven't discussed, there is one here. He exists.
We've discussed it a lot.
It is not a recommendation by any stretch of the imagination, but Levis is under contract here. I would be stunned if there was any world where that was considered viable. I understood what Mike Tannenbaum of ESPN told us on Tuesday, which is, well, if you're the Titans, you have to first get the evaluation of your own players right before you can go about evaluating what else you're going to add. I got what he was saying on that. Not that, that if Levis went on to succeed somewhere else, that it would be the end of Mike Borgonzi or something like that. But that's where you have to start, right? You have to self-scout first and then scout everything else that you think could help you. The self-scout should, I think, draw the conclusion that Will Levis is not a viable starting quarterback option.
I feel like that's what we did throughout the course of the entire season.
I would agree with you, nor do I really consider him a viable backup option, even though I understand that he's cost-effective, but you need picks. You've got a quarterback. Somebody will take another chance on him. I'm pretty confident in that, even as bad as last year was. But, oof.
Free agent quarterbacks we have not discussed. The F&M Bank chat has mentioned Mac Jones. We have not mentioned someone who a caller brought up yesterday, and that's Jimmy Garoppolo.
And I said we meant to get back to that. Jimmy's fine. I'd be good with Jimmy G.
Jimmy G with a rookie?
Jimmy G and a rookie, I'm cool. That's kind of, I know he's not a reclamation project. He's in the category of stopgap, but he's fine. He's played in similar systems. None of them are. The other one that we haven't talked about is Marcus Mariota. I do not believe there's a scenario in which Marcus comes back here. I would enjoy it. I like the person. I enjoyed covering him. Gave me a lot of fun games to cover and to watch and things to be interested in. But yeah,
he's such a perfect backup for Jaden Daniels over there.
He really is. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in if you would like. Let's go to Jansen up next.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
My take on the draft is for the Titans to trade back to about 6 or 7, somewhere in there, and take the tight end from Penn State, Tyler Warren.
Mm-hmm.
I think he helps your offensive line. He's a target for a young quarterback, or a safety valve, and if you have seen the highlights the past 2 years for him, he's phenomenal. I just think we go after a quarterback in free agency or draft, maybe Sam Howard or Dart, maybe 4th round, or maybe go to the Lions, talk to them about Hooker and go that route maybe. But I think Tyler Warren is the best option for the Titans.
It's an interesting. They need weapons, right? And he's certainly a weapon. And the Raiders could have done worse than Brock Bowers last year, even though they didn't have a clear answer at quarterback. We'll probably have to repeat this, but Hendon Hooker lost his backup quarterback job to a guy that was coaching high school football for the entire football season and then just came in to help the Lions buffer their quarterback room. Hendon Hooker was not as good as Teddy Bridgewater. So I get it. I understand why Tennessee fans love and respect him. Pass. Certainly not for draft capital.
Also, the idea of veteran and rookie, but the rookie being second or fourth round.
Yeah, it's tough.
Dart or Howard. That's a tough sell, man, when you have the number 1 pick.
How about Joe calling us from Florida up next?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. A quarterback that I think you guys haven't talked about, I wouldn't mind having is Russell Wilson. And as far as the number 1 pick, I don't understand why everybody wants to trade the pick. I don't remember a team that needs a quarterback who had the number 1 pick and they ended up trading the pick. So I'll hang up it.
And listen, it's because there's no consensus. There is not consensus on the quarterbacks. If there was a quarterback that was the clear and obvious number 1 overall pick as opposed to maybe the 10th best prospect on people's draft boards, or maybe the 15th best prospect, or maybe the 5th best prospect, right? The point is none of them are clearly an obvious. The best player in the draft is Abdul Carter.
Emory Hunt made the comparison of the 2017 draft to this draft. The Pat Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Mitch Trubisky draft.
Myles Garrett, number 1.
Right. That's the last time. That's the only time in recent history I could think of that a QB needy team with the number 1 pick did not go quarterback.
And what did they do?
They drafted Deshaun Kaiser in the second round.
And Kaiser obviously
did not work out.
Did not work out. But they did not address the quarterback needs, but they looked around and said, well, who's better at what they do? The quarterbacks in this draft, and they were wrong, obviously. Patrick Mahomes, and I mean, for a time there, Deshaun Watson was, you could argue, top 5, top 6. Myles Garrett is probably as good at his job at any given point in his career as Deshaun Watson was, so you could make the argument there. But if you're arguing Mahomes or Garrett, nobody really was at the time.
No, at the time, no. Mahomes was nowhere close to QB1, and he landed in the perfect spot to maximize and somehow make all his red flags his greatest strengths.
Yeah.
Coach Mack has sent us some weekend reading. I put it in our Twitter chat. It is an article by The New Yorker, the difference between a $30 pair of jeans and a $300 pair of jeans.
Bless him.
Okay.
Well, I got a big one to let out as soon as this show's over, so I'll probably read it when I'm on the turlet.
Nobody needed
Thank
to
you
know
for that.
Not a single solitary person needed to know your bathroom habits.
Now you can sit in it.
Well, Vanderbilt has, big 3 to cut it to a 10-point South Carolina
6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. 66-56 in the quarterfinal of the women's SEC tournament. Vandy taking on the number 1 seed South Carolina. We'll see if they can't draw a little bit closer as we get ready for our final segment coming up next. All right. First week back together in the books. How do we feel? I feel like we're in a good spot. I feel like we had a good week of shows. That's something that I've almost never said about this godforsaken radio show.
Yeah, if I don't get fired after this week with Sec Dungeon and talking about Lucas's butt today, I feel like we're doing okay.
Maybe it's the midday slot. We ain't got to worry about parents taking their kids to school, although there are an inordinate amount of children that listen to this radio show. I have parents come up to me all the time being like, my kid loves your show. I was like, you may need to make sure you're keeping an eye on what they're doing from 10 to 1.
And why did I have to catch the brunt of all the on-the-line things we did this week?
Have you seen Buck's ass? We ain't talking about his.
Yeah, nothing to write home about.
It's actually a very terrible case. Have you heard about his condition?
What, concave ass?
No, they wrote you a subscription for no acetol.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, he gave you pity laughs for your...
Yeah, come on, give me a... Thank you.
Horse joke.
Thank you, buddy.
Vanderbilt. Sorry, do you not like being the focal point of people's ire for a period of time? Is that uncomfortable for you?
For the 15th time, it's aura.
Ire.
I like that.
Idiot.
Vanderbilt is kind of charging back here. This was a 25-point South Carolina lead. It is now 70-63 with 3.5 minutes to go.
How many points does Michaela Blakes have?
20. She's at least at 20. She had 6 in the first half, and she is, if not right at 20, then right over it. But they just chucked up a 3 and did not reach the rim before the shot clock. So South Carolina getting it back. But great effort by Vanderbilt to come back in this thing.
Speaking of bad jokes, you two went to an improv comedy show recently that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, my
Last
gosh.
week. Yeah.
It was incredible.
It was really good.
Incredibly good or incredibly bad?
Okay, I'll set the scene, and then, Lucas, when you want to talk, you just tell me to shut up. So I went to the sauna, like I do most days, and one of my buddies in there goes to the improv class that it performs at this comedy club.
Who makes friends in the sauna?
I talk to everybody in there. It's the old men in there. I hear about what they don't like about their wives, how they fix stuff around their house, be that as it may. So I'm talking to this fella in the sauna, and he's like, hey, by the way, if you ain't got nothing to do tonight, I'm having my school is having an improv night, and it's hosted by this guy and girl who make an improv musical off of a suggestion. But the girl is out sick, so it is just the guy. So only the guy is out there. So where it would normally be 2 people coming up with an improv musical, it is 1 man.
Hey, you have to shut up now.
Okay.
You need to hit the Breaking Titans news sound now.
Oh, no, really?
You need to do that right now. As expected, the Titans are releasing pass rusher Harold Landry. So the longest tenured Titan is out. Once you tell a player, yeah, go ahead and see if you can find a trade. That to me is the kiss of death. And so Harold Landry, who was drafted here in 2018 as a second-round pick in a 4-man draft class, you remember that? Rashawn Evans, Harold Landry, Dane Cruikshank, and Luke Falk.
Landry, definitely the best of that quartet.
Yeah, I would say. Harold Landry, released by the Titans. An interesting tenure. He was a part of their success, and now they need to get better. I get what Lucas was saying, or I got Lucas's logic as to the idea of, well, how are you going to release Harold Landry if you don't draft Abdul Carter and get better as a pass rush? You can't. He's not that good at this stage of his career. He is... I don't even know if I would describe Harold as league average at this point in his career.
Going to have to essentially start over there. Arden Key pretty much is all you got, and a 7th-round pick in Jalen Harrell. Titans save over $10 million in cap space.
So,
if it's pre-June 1.
Does this inform? It is pre-June 1. Does this inform a potential pick at number 1 overall, given that the need has never been more glaring for pass rush? To me, it certainly makes the conversation more viable.
Well, at every turn, we're going to try to read between the lines on the moves the Titans make between now and the draft to say, what does it mean for the number 1 overall pick? But it frees up money. It could allow them to go get a Josh Sweat and add a pass rusher on day 2. I don't know. I don't know if this leans one way or the other in terms of the number 1 pick.
I thought you had something to say.
Yeah, so as I was saying, at the Improv
God's
Comedy
sakes,
Club, we get out there, and the first group of people that went up there, awful, terrible. They were not good at all. Like, it was a group of people who you could tell it was probably their first or second show. Well, me and Lucas get there late, and we have to trudge through as the show has already started. It is quiet. It's like you could have heard a pin drop. As we're walking through here, and they're doing their little terrible improv scenes, but then this guy gets up here, and he was amazing. So he's like, if you guys don't know how we do this, I'm going to take one suggestion and make an improv musical out of this. Can I get any suggestions? And this is where I think it could have been fixed, because before I could even think of a suggestion, because you knew I was going to be like, oysters.
Harold Landry.
Yeah, something like that.
Harold Landry.
Someone goes, semester at sea. He was like, I heard semester at sea. Here we go. And a piano player in the corner is like, playing him a song. This dude goes 30 minutes. No intermission, no break, no cue cards, no let me think about this. He sets scenes, plays multiple characters, does a whole improv musical in 30 minutes. It was
incredible.
It was absolutely incredible.
Is that going to be better or worse than the Cat Williams show that you begged me to take you to? And by the grace of our friends at Two Rivers Ford, they granted me 2 additional tickets.
Y'all are going to have so much fun at that.
To take you and Cheyenne.
I am so tickled.
Y'all are going to have so much fun.
Did they also say anything about getting us a car that they would let me drive tonight?
Let you drive? No.
Yes.
They are regularly make vehicles available to me. You are not a part of the Two Rivers Ford package.
I will give one free shout out, Third Coast Comedy Club. That was a great show, fantastic show. If you're bored on Mondays, I think they do it every Monday.
Harold Landry's career with the Titans ends. He is number 8 all-time in the franchise in all-time sacks. In the Titans era, he is 3, behind only Javon Curse and Jarrell Casey, and he's close. Curse, 52, Casey, 51, Harold, 50 and a half.
Had a good run.
He did. And now who's the longest tenured Titan? Jeff and Amani.
Jeff and Amani Hooker are the same draft class. So, yes. I am so curious to see how this changes or impacts what they will do in the NFL draft. Because, this does not... it makes it less clear who they would take number 1 overall if they were to pick number 1 overall, right? But that doesn't necessarily... this doesn't increase their leverage for a potential deal with, say, the Giants, right? This move doesn't necessarily impact that way. Jeff Simmons, last man standing. They need to get better around him. And, obviously Jeff, coming off a year where he wasn't overwhelmingly healthy, still found ways to impact some of these games, but Jeff knows he's got to be better. Jeff knows they collectively need to be better. Tavondre Sweat, Arden Key still there. And who'd have had Arden Key lasting longer than Harold Landry?
A lot of work to do on that side of the ball.
We don't necessarily have time. Do you want to do rapid fire polls?
Yeah. Rapid Fire, presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Who's your dream free agent target for the Titans? Jacoby says NWI. Jack says Nick Bolton or Javon Holland. Davidson says Josh Palmer. Interesting submission. Got to turn your mic on to talk over there.
Enough. I was posting on Instagram. I didn't realize Palmer was an unrestricted free agent.
He is obviously a VFL, but has been a pretty productive player for the Chargers. Who do you think will start for the Titans at quarterback week 1? A majority of votes going to a draft pick, 36%, 35.7% say a free agent, that is TBD. 7.2% say Darnold, 21% say Will Levis.
I think I'm in the category of free agent TBD.
What is the most likely scenario for Harold Landry? We now know the answer is cut. He has been released from the Titans, according to Tom Pelissero. That is where 49.4% of the audience, most people voted. Vanderbilt back down 17 with less than a minute to go. South Carolina will move on to the semifinal.
Yeah, that was my expectation for Harold. So
those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Great week. Good to have the band back together. We're excited about it. We look forward to continuing to try and elevate this thing. It shouldn't be hard because the bar is so low. Have a great rest of your weekend. 615 sessions with Paul Kaharski later today. I'll see you there.